we'll, tell me if you're not, because I don't want to rush anybody. Okay, Marcia, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for waiting while people got settled. We have a long agenda today, and we wanted to make sure everybody was, had the materials they needed. So it's 5:04, and we are going to open the Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Board meeting of the Village of Cooperstown. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding 38 Walnut Street and the application for demolition of the residence at 38 Walnut Street. Is anybody here to speak to that? Okay. Chris, have you had any communications about that?
I have not.
Okay, we're going to leave the public hearing open for a little bit, just in case anybody comes in regarding 38 Walnut. And we're going to move on to the regular agenda. On the regular agenda, the first item we have is we're actually going to move an item to the top of the agenda. We're going to move number 7 Old School Court up, number 4 Old School Court, item number 7, sorry, to the first item on the agenda. So would the representatives of 4 Old School Court please come up and have a seat?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. So your project is multi-phased or multi-sectioned. Would you like to tell us about it, please?
Yes, and I apologize for causing confusion by having 2 of the packets. One is the outside landscaping, and the other is the house.
Okay.
I was ready to go on the landscaping, wasn't quite ready to go on the house, didn't know if I'd get it done. So first of all, I'm Terry Ann Samus, and I recently bought a house on the 4 Old School Court. I used to live in White Creek Valley and sold my house out there, decided it was time to downsize. So thought Old School Court would be a perfect place to go. The woman that I bought from lived in the house for 40 years and has recently gone up to the Thanksgiving home. She's over 90 and is a wonderful lady, and I feel very lucky to have the house. Unfortunately, the house does need major repairs. The interior is going to get completely renovated, which then requires some new windows to be put in. The roof is leaking terribly, so it is going to require having a new roof. It leaks both in the bedroom and the living room, and the back side of the roof has a huge tree that overhangs it, and so it's in bad shape. Moss, and it's in bad shape up there. And then as far as the landscaping is concerned, it's a storage shed and replacing a fence. There is already an existing fence, but the fence that's there, part of it is red, part of it is white, part of it is 5 feet tall, part is 4 feet tall, part has the finished side facing in, part has the finished side facing out, so that needs to be fixed, remedied. So I'm asking for a couple things to be done. The first is the garden shed, and that would be a 6x6 garden shed, which is rather small. The sides are 5 feet tall, and then the peak, at the peak, is 7.5 feet tall. And in your package, I gave you a copy. The shed that I'm getting is from Jeff's Sheds Amish furniture that's up between Richfield and Herkimer, and it's a wood structure. And I have the picture that I put in your package. The one that I'm having is the trim and everything is all the same color, so it kind of blends in a little bit more, it doesn't stand out. And I have the colors, which is almond, and the roof is a gray, dark gray asphalt roof, which is the same as what the house is. So, any questions on the shed? It's kind of a simple one.
Wrong package, no wonder I can't find it, sorry.
I apologize for doing that to you.
I'll just note, on your drawing, it shows the shed. You can kind of count the squares to see that it's 5 feet from the setback, but.
Right, and it's 5 feet from, 5 feet or more from all of the boundary line.
Right, since it wasn't explicitly noted, I'm explicitly noting it for the record.
Oh, okay. Any other questions shed-wise?
So remind me of the exterior materials the shed is made
It's
of?
wood,
Okay.
and you can, do you want to see this?
I found the document in here.
This one is in color, and it might help you. And the roof is a regular, like, asphalt shingle, just like the house shingles would be. It's the same idea. And I guess that's it. It's almond color.
Does anybody have any questions about the proposed shed?
My only question is, what is Duratemp siding? You know what Duratemp siding is?
It's a wood siding, and then on the inside is a sheathing, a shiny, it's not fiberglass sheathing on the inside, but some sort of a like a particle boardish kind on the inside, but the outside is wood. There was an existing shed there before, but it was small, extremely old. It was metal, it was rusted, it was dangerous, and I wouldn't even go into it. So.
Any other questions about the shed?
So Duratemp siding is manufactured with strong plywood veneer inner core that is made of Western softwood veneer and fully water resistant NAUF phenolic resin. Manufacturer information.
And that's the exterior of it?
Yeah, that's what the-
Phenolic resin.
Mm-hmm.
The phenolic resin in the exhibit signage and stuff. Yeah. Okay, go on.
Okay, all right, so the next issue is the fence. And as I mentioned, the fence, the existing fence that is there is 5 feet, 4 feet, 2 different colors, inside, outside. It's not standardized in any way, shape, or form. I want to replace the existing fence with a black aluminum, and you have a picture of that in your packet. And it only is on the side yards and the backyard. It is not in the front yard. The fence looks like this, and it's basically the same look. Half a block down is Bassett Hall, and they have something similar to this look. Theirs is wrought iron, which is cost prohibitive for me to be able to do that, but it's the same look that they have a half a block down at Bassett Hall.
So, but it is gonna be this design,
Yes.
not the Bassett Hall picture,
Right,
correct?
right.
So no finials?
No. No.
And the color is
Black.
black. Does anybody have any questions about the
Any
fence?
questions about the fence?
Okay.
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 All right, so then the next one, we're done with that package and go on to the one for the house. And the house is getting a complete renovation on the inside, which then I will also update some of the windows. There is a map in here that looks like this. It shows you the location of all the windows in the house, and everything else I referred to that told you each specific window, what will change or not change for that specific window, goes by the letter code to kind of make it a little bit easier so you can figure out which windows we're talking about. There are a total of 9 windows on the house. The houses on Old School Court are very tiny, and there are a total of 9 windows. In those 9 windows, 5 of them are the same, and the other 4 are each different windows. So there are 5 different styles of windows in that little tiny house. The 5 that are the same are the ones that are most recent. I don't know when she replaced them. They are double hung windows with the panes, the grill in them. And the other ones, one of them is a double hung window, has no grill in it. One of them is a window that the windows open out like this. One of them is a window that the window opens up like this. I mean, they are all very different, and I would like to make all the windows from the outside look the same. So I am looking to replace a couple of the windows, and I am also looking to swap the location of the front door and one of the windows. So when you are looking at the front of the house, as it stands now, and you have pictures in there, there is the kitchen window, a double hung window, the door, and another double hung window. I would like to swap the door and the one double hung window. So I have the kitchen window, the door, and then 2 double hung windows. And the house across the street, number 5 Old School Court, which there's also a picture in there, has that exact same layout. The kitchen window, the door, and 2 double hung windows, exact same. So as you go around the house, I am replacing one window to match all the others, the double hung with the grills in it, exact same window. I'm switching the front door and the window next to it. I am removing one window that is currently in the dining area. That's the window that opens up. I will remove that one altogether. And then the last window is the one that opens out, and I want to replace that with a double hung window with the grids in it, so they all match. In moving the front door, also on the outside of the house, there is a portal that you step into before you go into the front door. Moving the front door means I also have to move that portal, which is also consistent with number 5 Old School Court. So that portal is cockeyed and sinking on one side. The storm door that's on the outside doesn't close because it's cockeyed. So when I move the front door, I will build the same portal, but it'll be a new one so that it's squared up. The door will close. I'm using the same front door. So I'm not replacing that. And I think that is about it on the windows and doors. I'm sure somebody has questions because there's a lot to that.
Show me in this drawing, because I'm still trying to navigate around it, which window you plan to remove completely, please.
Let me pull my drawing out. The one that I am removing completely is J. It's on the side of the house away from Susquehanna Avenue.
Okay,
So
we have
this little one here.
That little one there.
Thank you, Dee. I see.
I'm curious about the reason for removing that, just out of curiosity.
Because
suppose.
as I redo the inside, the kitchen is moving to that end of the house and the stove will be there. So I need to have a vent above
I see,
that.
okay.
Right now, it is just sort of a cabinet, if you
Mhm.
will, underneath it.
Mm.
So,
Mystery solved.
mystery solved.
Tell us about the windows you plan to use.
The windows, I am using windows, and I also provided a copy of that. They are double hung windows. I had Bruce Halls and my contractor came out to the house to measure, to make sure that we can get the same size windows that are there. And they will be in the same location, and they are the same window as the 4 that are already there, the 5
So the
that are
material is,
as the existing 5.
okay, so what material is it?
It's a vinyl. I'm not sure.
Exterior is or is not paintable,
No, they're going to be white.
but is it paintable? Is it a paintable vinyl?
I have no idea.
And the grills are going to be on both sides of the glass?
The grills are in between the glass. The existing 5 that are already in the house, they're in between the glass.
In this situation, I don't know if you got to review the window guidelines for the village?
I saw the thing about renovating old windows.
Right, we discourage the use of vinyl. I understand you're replacing vinyl with vinyl, but we also discourage the use of grills between the glass. We would encourage the use of grills that are dimensional, at least on the outside.
But then I would have to replace all of my windows, 5 additional windows that I plan to keep.
So can you, as far as the windows that are in the front of the house, right, I, H, G, and F, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of them is a door.
Right.
Are those windows remaining? Are those existing windows that are staying?
Yes.
Those are not being replaced?
No.
So the ones that are being replaced are A, B, C.
No, C is staying the same, D is staying the same, E is staying the same, F is staying the same, and H and G are swapping. H is staying the same.
So it's just I, A, and B that you're replacing?
I, A, and B, yes.
Okay, H is staying the same?
H is, yes, that's the one that's swapping with the door. I'm using the exact same window, I'm just swapping it with the door. I'm using the exact same door as well.
So G is moving to where, to the H?
Yes, a swap.
So window I is on the front of the house and that is being replaced?
Yes, and that one, that's the one that opens out.
The casement, outswing
Yes,
casement?
and I want to put the same type of door or window in there. That,
To match the
To
other
match.
2 windows on the front facade?
yes. And they are the existing windows, so I'm just trying really hard to match the existing that's already there.
So the window, the size of the opening of I currently is the same size as the window you're proposing, correct?
And that's true in all cases, except one on the very back, where I'm replacing a single window with a double window. It's on the back of the house.
So I know you're rebuilding the portal or kind of weather kind of
Airlock.
thank you. And you're proposing moving the door. Do you have any detail about how you'll treat the molding around the door itself, and any detail about how you will build that portal or airlock?
The portal will be the same, built to look exactly the same as it is, as the existing portal. It's just that it is old and sinking on one side, so it needs to be squared.
So you're planning the same
The same thing.
materials?
Well, it will match the house. It will, and with the new siding on the house, it will match the house.
We'll need detail on that to, in terms of exactly how that'll look, since it's not the same as it is then.
Your siding replacement is not part of this application?
Yes, it is. We just haven't gotten to that yet.
Yeah, so, and I'm just trying to think about fenestration changes and the door changes and kind of get my mind around that. So if the movement of the door is approved, we'll need you to come back with a field change for what materials are getting used where.
For the portal,
Yes,
you mean?
yes.
Okay.
And if the stoop is gonna be the same, the stone stoop, things like that, okay. So you plan to move the walkway over everything? Okay. Did anybody have any questions regarding the door or window proposals?
I have a question about the age of the house.
It was built in 1939.
Thank you.
All of the houses on Old School, all of the houses on Old School Court were built right around that. Okay. And I will ask you this, you're maintaining the shutters?
I am maintaining shutters, not those shutters, which I have shutters that go with the siding. And I have samples, if you want to see samples of those.
Well, yeah, we'll need to certainly see samples of anything you propose to change.
I'm wondering if it would be useful to just go back for a minute to the shed and the fence. Can we
Sounds like a good
treat
idea.
these individually?
That sounds like a good idea, Erin.
Before we get, this sounds like a lot more
Kinda in the
complicated
weeds.
here, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody, Erin is proposing that we look specifically at the shed and the fence application, and kind of address this, and then return to the more complicated window siding.
Door shutters.
Door shutters, exactly. So we asked this as we were reviewing it, but did anybody have additional questions about the shed or the fence?
No.
Karen? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion regarding the replacement of the existing fence with the black aluminum fence as proposed and the garden shed replacement with the proposed shed replacement?
I will
Thank you, Dave.
move that INPAR provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 4 Old School Court to replace fence and shed under criteria 2C and 3A and 3B.
Second?
I can second.
Thank you, Erin. Any discussion?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Liz votes yes.
Karen votes yes, although I already seconded it.
David, yes.
Sorry.
Fabulous.
We just make you vote anyway.
Bernie, yes.
Thank you. Okay, great. All right, so we have the shed and the fence taken care of. All right, so this is a lot to absorb. You're gonna show us shutters?
Shutters are these.
Do you have a style?
I'm gonna use this, which is a flat panel, because the ones that are on the house now are a flat panel as compared to a louvered type of shutter. I'm trying to match the existing as much as possible.
But you don't have this cute little,
The shamrock, which isn't a shamrock, it's a club, from
Right.
what I understand.
are these the original shutters, I would think?
I do believe so, because originally 4 of the houses had clubs, hearts, diamonds, and spades on them. So, but the only one that's still there, other than these, are the diamonds across the street. The rest of them are gone.
Is there a reason you don't want to preserve the shutters, the original shutters?
They're just not the style that I'm looking for. No, they're just not my style. So I thought I would go with a flat panel, keeping the same idea, but not having the shamrock in the middle of it.
What's the material?
This is vinyl, which would go with the vinyl siding that we are looking at. The house is vinyl currently. Here's a piece of it. Pass that down. The finish is breaking down terribly. That's extremely thin stuff. So the vinyl that I want to replace vinyl with is a much thicker, higher quality. And that is this one, right here, to have a cedar shingle look to it. I'm looking at doing it in this color, not in blue. But anyway, it's a much thicker vinyl than what is existing on there, but it replaces vinyl with vinyl. So that's what I am looking to go with, and the shutters would work with it as vinyl as well.
I don't see on your application information about siding and shutters. I did not get information about that as part of my packet.
Well, there is, this is the description of what I wanted to
Okay,
do,
I
the
see.
existing
All right.
siding.
So that proposed siding changes the look of the house pretty dramatically, because the original siding, even though it's got vinyl, horizontal clapboard type siding on, and it's vinyl, it's replacement siding, it would have had horizontal siding on when it was built. And the purpose of this board, and the reason I asked you about the shutters, is to really try to maintain as much of the character of the house as possible. So changing the siding to a faux shingle siding changes the character of the house pretty dramatically. And it's a charming little cottage, and taking the siding to that extreme would change the appearance, as would removing original adorable shingles that,
Shutters.
thank you, shutters, that are, you know, significant. Again, you described it as one of the only two with the shutters remaining. So that would be all the more reason to preserve those original shutters and use them. so I have real kind of hesitation about both the siding and the shutters being changed, the siding being changed to the cedar shingle look, and the shutters being changed at all, especially since they're intact. And did you consider horizontal clapboard siding at all when you were?
Well, this is a horizontal siding,
But
so I
it's
didn't
it's not a
realize that.
clapboard, it's a shingle, so that's the,
I
that's
didn't
the
realize
difference.
that it had to stay the same because the house next to me is the cedar style shingles and the one across the way from me.
Those
is
changes
also-
were made before this board existed, and one of the reasons for the kind of institution of this board was to begin to address dramatic changes to what remained of the historic integrity and of structures in the village. So as the village was put on the State National Register of Historic Places in the 1990s, the village adopted laws that reflected state and federal laws to protect the remaining historic character and integrity of structures within the Glimmerglass Historic District. And that's why this board exists, to look at changes to the exterior of buildings in the district and work to maintain the integrity they do still have. So the fact that, I know the shutters might not seem consequential to you, but we just had a little history lesson about how there are 8 houses on Old School Court, and it was like a deck of cards, right? Hearts and spades and clubs and diamonds, and you are lucky to have a house that has these shutters intact, and they survived for 85 years now. That would be, part of the historic fabric and significance of this particular house, as is the horizontal siding. Even though it's been changed to vinyl from its original clapboard siding, it still would have been originally clapboard. So that's why we have a review board, to look to try to maintain the appearance, the exterior appearance of our historic properties. Even though changes have been made to some before this village was on the State National Register, and even though you see examples of these changes around you, changes in exterior appearance are made in a way that reflects the historic integrity and appearance of the homes as we have them intact still. Yeah?
I have a concern about the shutters, in the sense that if you want to buy a house in Cooperstown and it's got something that actually offends you in terms of symbolism or something like that, and it's, in this particular case, it's the shutters, which I see as dismountable or temporary. I know they're a permanent part of the original design. Is there any way in which the homeowner could agree contractually, essentially, to keep the shutters and replace them with something that is more to their liking?
That's a really good question, and what you're pointing out is that there's somewhat reversible in that they could be stored, maintained, returned at some other point. However, we have this slippery slope argument that comes up all the time. You remove historic fabric, and the next person thinks, well, they did it, I can do it, and then more historic fabric gets removed.
Well, I would agree with that, certainly. I'm concerned when, if the historic fabric is saved, it's saved, and if the next person along says, well, I want to be able tear it off and throw it away, is that what you're saying? And not preserve it?
I'm not,
In other words, the second owner would, the second house buyer would say, I want to do this and my neighbor did the same thing. Would they be required, and I think they would, be required to maintain those shutters?
yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is, if their next door neighbor or the house across the street with the original shutters said, well, you let them take them down, now we want to take ours down.
Uh-huh.
And then with each little change, Old School Court loses more of the loses its integrity even more than it, time has already allowed it to. I understand what you're saying, and shutters are kind of an interesting example of the small changes that kind of slip down the slippery slope. And then changes in siding. You cited your neighbor has a faux shingle siding, thank you. My words are escaping me. But therefore you said, okay, our neighbor has that, we can do it too. And with each little change comes the next person saying, but you let them do it, whether it was something that happened before this board or not. So.
Do we know that?
Is it the house to the right that has the shingle,
Across the way. There is
directly
There
across?
is no house to the right. The one to the left of me, which is the first one that you see when you come into Old School Court on the right-hand side, I'm the second one on the right, they have the cedar shingle.
Is it vinyl also?
No, I don't think so.
So it's Mr. Reed's old house.
Yes, it is.
Well, mine is a question, I
Yeah.
obviously don't know the answer.
No, and so it's tricky, but, that's why we always say people use other houses as examples, point to other things that have been done. But we are looking at what remains of the integrity of this house, right? And trying to maintain it. I guess that's the way I look at it.
I would also say that something like shutters, whilst decorative, do not have a lifespan. They don't have a sell-by date or they're not going to deteriorate and need to be replaced like a roof.
Mhm.
So I think that replacing these shutters with something else is not in keeping with the purpose of the local law to help preserve the historic character of the properties in the village.
It's a puzzle.
We have a lot of puzzles to try to sort out. Okay. So with the roof, you're proposing a change in color, or is the color you're proposing the same?
Color is the same.
Okay. So that, if the color is the same and you're proposing an asphalt shingle, correct?
Yes.
So if it's not changing in material or color, that does not need to be reviewed. So the things we're reviewing in this application are the window changes, the change in the door, the proposed siding, and the proposed shutters. Is there anything else in this application that I have missed?
No.
Okay. So, Dave Strogatz, do you have any questions?
No other questions.
Okay. Aaron, do you have any questions?
So my primary question is that the two existing windows in the front of the house that have the grills between the glass, right, those were installed, replaced before the existence of this board. If someone came to us today and proposed vinyl windows with the grill between the glass, we would not be able to approve that window. what is the stance on approving a like window so that things match, even though it doesn't go with, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
I get it. Yep,
Because in reality, this house would have had dimensional muntins, would have been a wood window, right, with,
When it was built,
right,
I'm assuming.
right, when it was-
they were,
in the
I,
1935.
the ones,
They would have been, because the vinyl wasn't a building material.
Right.
yeah,
So they would have been wood windows, and they may have had light divisions, which means the little squares. They may not have had light divisions, I don't know. I don't know if any of the old school court properties have any original windows.
I
But
think
just-
number 8 did as of 25 years ago, anyway.
So if you came today and said, we want to replace all these windows, we would likely require aluminum clad wood window or something similar like that,
But I'm just matching the
right,
existing.
and so that's my primary question, is what do we do in that case?
Which it's kind of a rhetorical question for all of us.
Right. It's a unique problem.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
How many of these houses are there in Old School Court? 8? And how many are, do you think, original to the builder?
all of them, 8.
I
all
think
eight
they
were built at
built
once.
at the same
No,
time.
no, but I mean, and they remain the same?
Meaning they haven't been updated, is that what you're asking?
In other words,
I think the only house that may be the same as mine is number 3. Everything else, I think, has been updated except mine.
thank you.
And updated on the interior versus updated on the exterior?
I don't know about their
Okay.
interiors, I'm
Okay.
only talking about their exterior.
Okay. That's been an evolution with each one, yes, but most remain somewhat intact, shutters aside. Pat, did you have any other questions?
Nope.
How about you, Bernie?
I am thinking that it might be a moot point to think further about the storage of said shutters for future use if that's not attractive to the owner. So, I mean, if the owner's not even interested in that option, if it were an option, then we could dismiss that right off, not even think about it any further. Not to encourage the owner to think that that would be acceptable, but it would at least rule that out in terms of potentially thinking about it. It is an interesting conundrum.
I have, and we have, certainly this is not the only, especially one of our smaller, more modest homes in the village that's come before us recently with a proposal to replace horizontal clapboards with a shingle siding. And the proposed siding really will change dramatically the look of this cottage, and in the context of what remains, trying to maintain the clapboard of this little cottage. I understand that it's a vinyl siding, but I would highly personally encourage you to consider another clapboard style siding, whether it's replacing vinyl with vinyl or looking at an engineered clapboard material. But I think personally that the proposed siding will change the appearance of the house pretty dramatically. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Can we vote on
We
it?
can vote on, we can, I propose we break each part out and vote individually.
If we could.
Yeah. And are people feeling ready for a vote, though? Is there anything anybody else would like to?
Hi, I'm Rick Hulse, friend of Terry Ann's, and I haven't been in one of these meetings in 18 years, but the last time I came with Jim Dow, who passed away a year ago, our funeral director. Jim was a lifelong friend of mine. He wanted to build a new house out back of the funeral home. And I recall a discussion on the siding at the time, and he was getting a lot of heat about using the vinyl siding, the cedar shake appearance. I'm giving you this just for background, and he mentioned a couple of other houses in the area, and I believe members of the board went to see it. One of them was Dr. Rauscher's house out on Allen's Lake Road, and we actually took a ride out to the factory where the stuff was made, and I can't honestly tell you exactly where it was. It was past Syracuse, but not quite to Rochester. And the board ultimately approved it. And I went over to see Debbie about it, and it's held up nicely. That's new construction now, not an older home, I realize that. But if you look at it, you've got to get right up to it before you realize that it's vinyl and not wood. And I just offer that for a little background.
And it isn't vinyl is another issue, but with this particular thing, you hit the nail on the head. That was new construction. With this, we're looking at an existing home and its historic appearance. And so if you found a historic picture of this, it would have horizontal clapboards. It would not have the shingles that you're proposing. The only reason you're not getting more pushback on the vinyl itself is because it has vinyl on it. But going for maintaining the horizontal clapboard appearance would be, because this is not new construction, would be the argument for this, in my opinion. So, would anybody like to choose one of the items to address first in a motion? We have the window replacement with the proposed matching vinyl windows with grills between the glass. We have the door change in position and the swapping of the window and the door. We have the proposed siding, and we have the change in the shutters.
I'll make a motion for the windows and the door. I think that I accept what you're saying in terms of the sort of conspicuous appearance of the horizontal siding versus the shingle and the shutters, the deck of cards thing. For the windows, since you're matching, and I don't think it's conspicuous in the same way the siding is, and so I would say that we move each part provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 4 Old School Court, and specifically the replacement of windows, the movement of the door, and to do so under criteria 2B, 3B, C, D, and 5.
A second.
Thank you, Bernie.
Can we note somewhere in the record that we've approved this window choice only because of the existing grill between the glass vinyl windows? To make sure that no one reads this record and thinks, oh, but they did it over there and why can't we do it now? This is an exception for appearance. Thank you.
Especially in light of the small percentage of the overall.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good idea. Probably could go right in the discussion in the minutes. Okay, would anybody like to vote on Dave's motion? We got a second, right?
Bernie
Bernie seconded, thank you.
Aaron votes yes.
David, yes.
Liz, yes.
Bernie, yes, if that's more.
Hmm?
Bernie, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Regarding the shutters, and the replacement of the shutters, does anybody want to make a motion? Okay. If there are no motions, we're going to ask you to maintain the shutters. Regarding the change or the proposed shingle style siding replacement, would anybody like to make a motion? Will you return with a clever?
I can look at that. Can
Thank
I also return with thoughts on these shutters at the same time?
You can return with them. I think that the shutters, like the clever siding, are, the shutters are, I'm not sure if they're called out in the nomination, but they are really a significant, you can, I'm not gonna say you can't return with it, but right now we're asking you to consider maintaining your shutters, your original shutters. Are they called out in the nomination? No, okay.
But there's also there's no information about the group of old
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, so, come back with the siding and we can continue this conversation.
I don't have my cheat sheet, if you will. Could somebody make a motion about the shutters,
Sure.
please?
I do not have mine either because my bag was not with me.
No one's told me how to make motions yet.
You're hired, Pat, Dave.
All right, so I move that H Park provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 4 Old School Court. Does the shutters rest on a decision about the siding?
No,
No, okay.
No, we're breaking
So we're
everything up.
talking about appropriateness for the project at 4 Old School Court, maintaining the current shutters?
that's the, yes. Okay, would you like to second, or somebody
I'll
would like to second? Okay, any discussion? Okay, Liz votes yes.
Aaron votes yes.
David, no.
Yes says that they have to maintain it.
That was my understanding.
That was your motion.
That's my motion, yes.
Pat
To
votes no.
maintain. Okay, David votes no, Pat votes no. Bernie?
Liz, didn't you vote yes?
I voted to maintain, I'm sorry.
Yeah, which is yes.
Correct.
I voted no, so we have 2 yeses and 2 noes.
Right, and
Oh, gee.
sorry.
Think about how good the pay is.
Yeah, indeed.
Somebody else had the cheat sheet, yeah.
I'm gonna vote to maintain them, but I am gonna go look at I'm gonna take a better look at
The property.
the property, because I'm not even exactly sure from the picture how well you can make out what it is and how close the other house is that's still maintaining the shutters, and
Okay,
So your vote is yes?
I'm voting to maintain
Yeah, which is a yes.
the yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
sorry, Marcia. No, that's good. On this one, we need some clarification. Thank you. Okay, please come back with horizontal siding, and we will continue the conversation. And as you know, what specifically you'd like that the the design of that airlock portal to look like, please come back with that as well. That can be a field change, okay? Thank you. Okay, we are going to return to the conversation about 38 Walnut Street and the proposed application for demolition. Has anybody come in to speak to that? Can you give this to Chris because it was in my file? I wasn't sure I was supposed to have that.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Come on up, Keith. Okay, nobody's come in to speak to the proposed demolition. How are you guys tonight? Thank you. So, the public hearing did not yield any argument for or against the demolition at 38 Walnut Street. As you both know, I have serious concerns about the application. It was, you've applied for application to demolish the structure before, and it was turned down. And, you know, I did a lot of research and a lot of thinking about this recently, spoke to people at the State Historic Preservation Office about it. You know, and there are a lot of different ways to kind of approach considering this. I think that we've talked about some of your goals for this property over time. It's been about 2 years that we've been talking about this.
2 years.
You know, and I'm not, and this, there are different ways to have this conversation based on what your goals are too. Are you planning on using this property for a personal home or for income generating property? I'm just not clear at this point, because we talked about development.
For income.
Income.
We were not gonna actually
Okay.
live there, no.
Okay, so we talked about development out the back at one point and approved
Yeah.
that, right?
Well, I did such a terrible job the first time I came in. My presentation. I
This is
thought
not
was good,
easy
but,
for you
you
or
know,
for
and
us.
so it was hard to see, and I was like, well, okay, I'm new to the rules, so you know, our intent was never to take the building down. But just going into it just became so apparent, just everything is on the bottom tier of where it may land on an old house once you start exploring what's behind the walls and electrical and whatnot. And so we did put a lot of time, money, making new plans, because you did approve some plans to put an addition on the back. And we did carry forth with that. You can't really see it driving by very easily, but my shoulder knows it. And so we did put a lot of effort and time into that. And the closer we got to like actually, you just have to deal with that foundation now and then everything else. And it's like, well, we got to the point, it's like, you know what? We couldn't talk ourselves into this makes sense. So that's why we came forward with the hardship part, where it just
But
didn't.
right now, we're not considering a hardship application, because a hardship application requires a lot of financial information. And there's a model law from the state that kind of spells out what a hardship application would be. I know you said to us at the last meeting that you feel it's a hardship, but this kind of review has to start with the historic significance and integrity of this structure, and we have to kind of weigh that first. If there is then, if the board does not approve demolition then there are, there's a list of information in the model law from the state that we would ask you to provide in a hardship case. So the first thing this board will do is vote on the historic significance and integrity of the house. Does it maintain that historic significance and integrity? And that conversation then kind of determines where we go with hardship. Because hardship does require true kind of actual kind of financial proof of hardship, that a reasonable return cannot be achieved, things like that. It's not just, in my opinion, I can't get something out of it, but for example, could you sell it to somebody else? And I know you had it for sale for a while, but was it priced at a place where somebody else could invest in it who was willing to do the work?
There were 0 offers.
Was it,
I mean, 0.
what, there are a lot of, so the threshold for the state would be to look at, was it priced at what you paid for it or close to what you paid for it, kind of things like that, or showing the work, an accounting for the work you put into it when you chose to list it. And so there are a lot of considerations with hardship that would require some documentation to be considered. In the meantime, I want to see if anybody else on the board has questions related to historic significance before we vote on the application to demolish the residence based on the historic integrity and significance of the house in terms of the historic nomination and districts. Yes.
I don't have as much question. I should say that by way of background, I used to teach design history at the University of Maryland. What concerns me, well, there are two things that concern me. One is that the house is an historic style. It's called British Arts and Crafts. It's a cottage version of a much larger series of houses. And in many parts of the country, the Northeast, California, it was an extraordinarily popular structure. The sad thing is that it's the only one that I know of in Cooperstown. So if it goes.
Well, there is another one that's similar. It's a little bigger. It's over by the hospital. It has that same front entrance.
Right.
It's a 2-story though.
Two-story?
It's on Fair Street.
There are
There might be
stories.
2 of them. but-
Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but it has that same kind of feel and appearance, just a little larger.
Well, the only thing I'm saying is that the house is important in terms of the history of architecture. The fact that there may be one other might mitigate that. I'd have to see the other. But to lose it would be an actual loss to the village, in my opinion, and an historic loss. So we're in this position where you have a sense of loss if you can't make the kind of return you'd like to have on it versus the village's loss. And I really don't know what the answer to that is, obviously, but I tend to come down very heavily on its uniqueness and more than that, its historic importance. I'm sad to be the reporter of that, but it's important.
I agree. When we bought it, because it's a cute house. I mean, when you drive by it, it has ideal and curvature. There's no question about it. And our intent was never to do that.
What?
Our intent was never to be here in this situation. And we put considerable time, money, resources into this. And it's the point's just like, it's not a practical project. And I understand how there are not a lot of that specific house model in the village. But it's like, we have to survive this endeavor also.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't the ones that let it deteriorate to this point. We've actually made some improvements on it. And, I've tried to sell it to people. We put a price on it. We got 0 offers, 0. 2 people I even met with and looked at, they said, no, we'll just tear it down. And the county came and said, it's condemned.
I certainly understand that some people, lots of people, would not see it having any value at all.
Right.
The problem is, how about the other folks?
I'll sell it to you if you want to buy it.
Actually,
Can
if I
you
didn't-
shake hands?
Yeah, I will.
If I didn't sit on this board, I would actually ask you if you would.
I definitely.
And, I mean, simply because of its historic nature, but I can't.
Okay.
But my other point is that if I would, I suspect there's somebody out there who would.
I can't find them. I've been asking everybody, people walk by on the sidewalks, I'll be out there mowing something. Oh yeah, how about that? So you want to buy it?
Would you like to buy it?
I've asked hundreds, I've asked hundreds of people and they just kind of laugh, no, thanks. A couple actually looked at, walked to the back, no, I don't want anything to do with that.
And we understand that you're making an argument about not losing your investment in this property. However, in the law, the hardship, the hardship is the hardship to the structure, not the owner. When you purchased the property, you purchased it with the understanding that it was something to rehabilitate.
Yes,
You had, I'm sure, at least an inspection. And
Inspected it, we knew it needed work.
you
There's
knew
no
it,
question
you knew
about
it,
that.
yes, exactly.
The full
No.
extent, in a row house, you don't know the full extent until you can do, you start looking behind the walls. There's a lot of things you can't see and it's guesswork. And, there's a range of guess, it's gonna turn out better or worse. So generally, most things were coming out of lower. I mean, there's junction boxes behind the wall with no covers on them. The wires are taped together. There's two of those behind the wall. And I'm like, you
Why
can't.
not?
I know.
I
That's part of the problem. It's like you can't. It's like you want people to be safe, and so you're like, okay, and you look at that, and you got to address all that. And
And he'd be working on it and have me come in. He'd make another, like getting all of the dog urine out and the goop and the slimy stuff, and he'd have me come in and just ask me to take a sniff. And I would sniff, and there was just no way that I would rent out a house to anybody that smelled like that. So we taped off another layer, something else would have to come out, and then you realize that the urine went right through the floorboards.
It's in the subfloor.
The subfloor, and then when you're in that
spots.
deep, you start to see the water
It's,
damage. And the black mold is just incredible in the back structure, and then the bathroom was enclosed. So
You still have to pump the basement. There's still water. The sub pump isn't on, and I unplug it because it sticks and stays on and wastes electricity. There's water. I was in there on the weekend. There's that much water in the basement. You gotta pump it up. It's just like it's a silly place to have a basement, quite frankly, because it's kind of a swamp and that clay soil. It's a bathtub. Just takes water and holds water.
the price chopper, it's not frustrating, or is it? Yeah, that's much higher than the backyards. All that water comes off into that yard. It's the low spot in all of those areas. So over time, the other properties have changed too, and it has not been good for that particular piece of property.
So what you're saying is that the property itself is failing as well.
The location's awesome. The property, it's kind of silly to build something there, quite frankly.
But I mean, the water would.
Oh, yeah, the water
would rain
Yeah,
a
the
problem.
water, and
There's
Keith
water
did
in the back, always seeing.
so much work trying to do the drainage in the back.
We did
He
put
had
French
heavy
drains
equipment in, stones in, ran pipes over to the storm
Yeah.
drain, got permission from
Trying
the
to
neighbor,
mitigate.
trying to mitigate that and get the water away from the structure, and it's still coming out.
Okay,
That's-
but isn't that gonna remain no matter what you do?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
We had hoped it
But
would.
the new one, you wouldn't put a foundation. You'd have a foundation, but not a basement.
Yeah.
Why fight water? I mean, it's hard to fight water. It's not a battle, but
Pat, do you have any other questions?
Lots. We haven't time.
We have a really lengthy agenda here.
Dave, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Erin, do you have any questions? Bernie, do you have any questions?
Before proceeding to what?
Motion.
Before proceeding for a motion regarding the proposed demolition.
I have a comment. It seems that it would be easier to decide the fate of the property if we had an independent estimate on what the situation is. And then based on prohibitive costs and no future for anything happening to it, then in terms of its rehabilitation, then it would be a lot easier to decide.
I agree.
I agree
Were you
with that.
reading my mind?
Well, so it was like last meeting, I brought that expert in with me, and there are no questions.
But we need an independent.
He is
We need-
independent, I'm not married to him. I mean, he's independent, he's done this for 50+ years,
We needed somebody the village identifies as representative of the village interests. And, I'm gonna give you a copy of the model law, and the information about demolition and hardships is spelled out in
I have
sections.
that right here.
New York State model law?
Well, it's under the law that I'm told
Okay.
to look at for what we have to do.
Okay, but this is the law we have to adhere to per New York State too, so section 20 and 21. And among other things, it says, before approving the removal, relocation, or demolition of an individual landmark or structure within a historic district, the commission may suspend the application for up to 180 days to allow the applicant to consult in good faith with the commission, local preservation groups, and the public in a diligent effort to seek less intrusive alteration to demolition. So we'd like to,
I'm getting confused again. So this law that we look up on the village's website, this doesn't mean anything?
it
I don't
does,
understand it.
but we're
It's-
also accountable to the State Office of Historic
Okay.
Preservation and audited by it. And
Okay.
I had to consult with the State Office of Historic Preservation on this. And so, especially when it comes to, because the village law doesn't specifically outline hardship criteria, but you wanted us to consider hardship
But
criteria.
it does, there's 3 steps, there's 3 things to
Okay,
meet.
would you like to read me those 3 steps?
Certainly. One's property is incapable of earning a reasonable return, so whatever reasonable means, right?
Mhm.
Regardless of whether that return represents the most profitable return possible, and provided that the lack of return is substantial as demonstrated by competent financial evidence. So number 2, property cannot be adapted for any other use, whether by the current owner or by a purchaser, which would result in a reasonable return, and good faith efforts to find a purchaser interested in acquiring the property and preserving it have failed.
Okay.
That's-
But you've told us this, but to prove that, we need to give you time to document that.
So which part didn't I prove? That's the part I don't understand. What,
This,
we tried to.
we need
put it on
financial
advertising.
documentation. We need financial documentation of the investment you've made,
Okay,
what you tried to sell it for. We are asking for an independent engineer, an independent evaluation of the condition of the foundation.
so the county is not independent enough? They're
We need-
totally unbiased, they said the foundation's condemned, you can't go in it.
We need an independent structural engineer to look at the foundation. Somebody,
They condemned it, what more is there to it? I mean,
they condemned the
came in-
foundation.
yeah, he came in and looked at it, and I said, can you look at it, in your opinion, he's like, I can't do what you, I told him exactly what I was doing, and he's like, he came in and said, yeah, definitely, this is not safe. The letter supplied to you, and that's independent, it's
Oh.
county codes. What do you-
All it does is say that the structure, it's in order to remedy an unsafe structure.
Okay,
It doesn't say that the property is condemned and must be demolished.
It does not say it needs to be demolished, no.
No.
It
It
says
says
it's
that the structure
unsafe.
is unsafe and unfit for human occupancy. I'm reading what it says.
Yeah, so the house foundation sustained a significant amount of structural damage, which the concrete block is failing or falling apart. Due to the state of damage, this property has become a danger to the health and general welfare of anyone who enters the premise and property. So that says the foundation is not safe.
But it doesn't mean the house needs to be torn down because the foundation is not safe.
No, that's correct, but it addresses the foundation part.
Right,
May I
but-
ask a question?
yes.
I'm under the impression that there was a house on Beaver Street that fell into disrepair. I mean, substantial disrepair, where people actually were concerned for the owner of the house. And apparently the village has access to a structural engineer who 3 different times went to that house. I mean, I was amazed that it was still standing. And the structural engineer said that other than the porch falling into the person's front yard, it would not fall into the sidewalk or the right of way, that the house was structurally sound.
Okay.
Now, my question is that structural engineer still available?
We can check with, now Chris is our new zoning enforcement officer, so I can't expect him to speak to that. But we can determine who that structural engineer was, who worked with the village. And if that person is not available, we can find an independent structural engineer
Well,
to.
I have never disputed the wood part of the structure. I have never claimed that that's.
But that's the part that has to go, right?
Yeah, but you gotta look at the hardship of the whole project. It's basically, you have a glorified shelf. You gotta, basically you're building, it's harder to do a foundation.
One of the
building
ways
on
to
top.
remedy this, and the reason we are saying, looking at the model law from the state,
Okay.
asking for time to figure out alternatives is, we could look at moving the structure. We could find somebody else who is interested in the structure if you want to remove the structure from the property.
Sure, that'd be great.
This is what we're trying to do.
If somebody wants that house, they can have it.
In the meantime, we need to really work with you to determine how to best maintain that structure so it is not lost, because it is significant. It's one of a kind in this village.
It kind of perplexes me, because like, I read these rules, and I'm like, okay, now I find there's more rules. And like, it seems like there's moving targets, like what's contributing, what's not. Like there's a house, 3 houses down from us, literally got knocked down. There was a contractor came and said, yeah, it's a piece of junk. We want to knock it down. Boom, it's gone.
So which house was that?
3 houses down from us. I don't know the number, but that one's gone. And it's like, I'm told everything's contributing.
Would
I'm
it
told
be-
some aren't.
This is a little bizarre, and it's not
Yeah, it's
formulated, no, what I'm about to say.
Okay.
I feel so strongly about this house that if it were legally permissible, and I could find out what it would cost actually to move that house, I would like to have that house.
You can have it.
Okay, can we
I would-
have a delay so
Yes,
that I
well, I
actually can
propose-
make
Yeah.
a bona fide offer for it? I'm willing to resign from this position if that stands in the way.
We'll seek advice from the village attorney, Pat. I would prefer not to lose you on this board, but I would also prefer not to lose that house. In the meantime, because the model law of the state, and this is what the SHPO asked me to do, was to really take the time based on, finding alternatives to demolition. We, as Bernie proposed, can seek some advice from an independent engineer. We can work on that. We can determine how to appropriately look at other avenues of preventing this house from demolition. And if you can work with us, we can continue to have this conversation about the best way to do this.
Sounds like you don't have a choice.
He said it sounds like he sounds like he doesn't have a choice. And, you know, we can put it to a vote right now if you would prefer, Keith. If anybody wants to make a motion to approve your application to demolish the residence, and then you'll have an official record of whether you do or don't have a choice. And I'm not saying that in any kind of a threatening way. The demolition of this structure has been turned down already once before. Granted, some of the composition of this board has changed. But if somebody wanted to make a motion, we can vote.
My application was for the hardship. And I still don't understand exactly what I need to prove to you folks that this really is a hardship, and I'm not just making it up.
There's a
I
lot
don't
of
understand
financial
that.
documentation that
Like-
needs to be provided for, a lot of financial documentation.
So just to, in the law, it says, the property is incapable of earning a reasonable return. You already read this, but it also says, as demonstrated by competent financial evidence,
Okay.
right? So we would need some financial
So
evidence,
we
which is more than
received-
your statement of,
Well,
this was
we
hard.
received
and-
no money for anybody wanting to live there. That's kind of,
Right, so
Right.
that's the stuff that you would need documented on
Well-
paper, as opposed to just you saying it.
Do you mind if I make a comment?
when the real estate agent says it was unlivable and unrentable, that's not, how do you document? You can't rent it and you don't get a check. How do you document that? I don't know.
Do you mind if I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
And I'm new to this board, so hopefully I'm not going down the wrong path, but it seems to me that you're saying that the cost to renovate, to get it back into a situation where it could be income gaining property or to live in there would cost an exorbitant amount. And it's not that I doubt you on that, but it's one thing to have somebody say it's condemned and the foundation's bad. It's another thing to know independently that the cost for remedying the situation somehow would be far in excess to what someone could reasonably gain in income over time. And that kind of documentation for the cost of rehabilitation from an independent is holding me up. Not that I doubt you. It sounds like it would be an exorbitant amount.
Well, you don't know me, so I don't blame you.
Okay,
But
but it seems that there's people talking past each other in terms of, you're saying, look, this has been, the foundation is really bad. I've had someone come in and they've said it's bad, and it probably is bad, but then the question comes up, well, how much actually would it cost to rehabilitate it? And I'm not doubting you that it would be an exorbitant amount, but until there's documentation in terms of what it would cost, then it's hard to make a decision. It just seems like people are talking past each other in terms of that missing aspect, that nobody's saying that the foundation isn't shot or whatever, but it's the question of how much would it cost to rehabilitate it. That's independently verified. It seems to be missing to me.
So basically, I think what I hear you saying is, I would need to go out and get people to come in and get written bids. This is what I'll charge you to do this work.
I'm new
Is that
here,
what
but
I-
is that how,
Is that
do you
what I'm
understand what
hearing?
I'm?
Because an engineer isn't gonna give you a price, they
Mhm.
just evaluate.
Mhm.
They don't say it costs this much, that's not their job.
And I think it would be best if there was someone independently, if there was someone from the town that would be able to help go with that process of how much would it cost, because, we're more likely to believe someone that the town is more likely to believe someone that they have a history with than somebody that they don't. So maybe there's that possibility.
Would the village be willing to work with Mr. Bassler, who's already familiar with the property, who's already described what the issues are, and might be in position to be able to put the price tag on doing what he describes, in addition to what you've already spent, to get it to the point where it's at, and then Bassler say, okay, beyond that, here's what else would be needed, and then with that amount, we then can say, okay, well then, once it's livable, what would it take to then recover those?
I think what we
costs?
have to do, unless somebody wants to propose to vote, if Keith is satisfied leaving this meeting without a vote, is to work on a plan outside of this meeting between the zoning enforcement officer and the village attorney, instead of negotiating, getting people to the, how to do it right now. We have to look at the state model law, look at what the financial hardship thresholds are in terms of articulating that, and continue to have this conversation. Look at the other proposals on the table as well, because I think it's not as simple as Keith coming to us with a couple of estimates to repair the foundation. That's not for us to judge. If he wants to argue hardship, there are several thresholds around hardship. The hardship application you are saying you are proposing doesn't precede an up and down vote on demolition based on integrity and significance. So we first vote on integrity and significance. That's the first step in this process. If the
I thought
board,
we already had that.
Pardon me?
It was voted down,
right,
and according to that, you have 2 years, so I wasn't gonna do it. I was like, I'm just gonna go, because it's not making, I can't talk myself into this. So it was already voted down, and now we're at the hardship point, not
But-
to start all over, are we?
well, that was my understanding last time, that you were coming back for a demolition permit. We have to vote again on integrity and significance before we can move to hardship, or we have to agree that we will proceed amicably through a process of trying to figure out how to do everything we can not to demolish the structure. And that could be moving it, that could be figuring out whether you're going to get a reasonable return from it, or figuring out,
So what would we call a reasonable return? What's that mean?
that is,
See, there's all the things, and
That
it's like,
is-
what I might think is reasonable, and everybody else is kind of a different thing, or the cost is $300,000, is that unreasonable for a little bitty house?
That's
I
the
would think
purpose
so.
of the hardship application. There's a whole procedure listed in the law after the criteria in F. There's also G and H after that say, here's what needs to happen as part of the hardship criteria, or hardship application procedure.
So is this procedure like this always followed? Because I'm looking up minutes before there have been some, and that stuff never came up. This is like I feel like we're getting ambushed really quick, right? Because it's like, you read these laws, it's like contributing. Like, what's a contributing structure? I don't know. I see a lot of places getting torn down. Thank you, Cooperstown, tore that perfectly good house down next door for a parking lot, which it's a nice parking lot, it's whole. Is that contributing? Is the one down the road from us just got torn down? I thought they're all contributing, so
each,
it's
what?
like hard to understand this.
It's hard to understand, but each structure gets looked at for its own significance and integrity. And that's where you have a structure that's unique in the village, that maintains some historic significance and integrity that we are trying to preserve. So you can't compare apples to apples. You can't compare it to the house down the street that got torn down.
But that was uniquely significant also, because there wasn't anything, it was copped together, granted, but there are not a lot of them like that. There really isn't.
We can't debate the other structures. We can
It's just
we can look at that.
protocol, so it's consistent, is all I'm trying to get at.
But
And
what I'm
so
saying is
feel
each
that.
house, each building presents different challenges, different questions, and comes to us with different
Sure.
integrity. And that's why we can't compare. We try to be as fair and even-handed as we can be on this board, but every single structure presents different challenges and has different questions involved. And I'll tell you this, we all take it very seriously, and not in wielding any kind of strange power way, as much as trying to protect the historic fabric of this village. And it's part of what we swear to do when we're sworn on to this board, when we're appointed. And it's part of what we have to defend to New York State when we report every year. And specifically around demolitions, those decisions are analyzed very, very carefully by the state. So we're accountable to the state when it comes to demolitions within a historic district too.
It's an opinion though, too. So
That's-
so the state law that I need to read to understand.
Giving it to you.
Okay, that'd be fantastic.
And,
That sounds awful thick.
and also, because I wasn't sure whether this was an income producing property or whether you were looking at it for personal use in terms of living in it as a primary home. There's information on tax credits for income producing properties from New York State as well. So if that helps, and then the model law, the section we want to look at specifically around demolition starts around page 19, okay? And
So there's nothing beyond that that's gonna pop out that we're not aware of?
I think we have to have specific conversations between you and Chris and Martin about questions related to hardship and proving hardship, and there are folks at the state who can help us answer questions about proving hardship too.
So
We
there's
see-
no more laws though?
We
This is
see,
it.
no,
Okay.
not that I know of, we see
Okay,
very few applications for hardship, and that's why we, as an all-volunteer board, are not super familiar with it either. The last hardship application we had was probably 5 years ago. And so I apologize for not being thoroughly versed in hardship law.
It's hard to know everything.
But between the village attorney and the folks at the State Historic Preservation Office, we want this to proceed fairly for you too, but there are laws that are in place regarding historic districts and how we do this. So we have to follow those also.
From the case 5 years ago, do you have an idea of how much money this will cost us with the process we have to proceed with?
I think we asked that person to, once the village identified an engineer, a neutral third-party engineer, we asked them to pay for that engineering report. I don't think it required anything else,
Not from us.
So why would we have to pay for an engineer that you want?
because the village is not gonna pay for an engineer to study your property.
Well, the engineer's looking at the structure, right? Structural?
The foundation.
Does it need to be demolished?
Okay, so the whole thing then. So basically, everything above ground structurally is safe. Not in dispute.
I'm not in a position to argue that point, but I mean.
I'm not
thing-
arguing, I'm just stating it's a
Right,
fact.
I mean, I think the thing is that a professional person who gives an unbiased view as to the structural integrity of the building.
Because I've had an engineer look at it, and he said, yeah, above the ground is fine. It's structurally, it's fine. It's the foundation, but then it's everything you add into making it a house.
There's just so many questions that need
There are.
to be
Do
answered.
you mind
And-
do you mind if I make a comment?
Sure.
It seems to me that if you're confident about the above ground part of it,
I am.
not adding extra cost to it, then really we're just talking about the foundation part of it. And if that turns out to be prohibitively expensive, then that would seem to indicate demolition, whereas if it wasn't, that would indicate rehabilitation. And it would seem to be somewhat on you to come back later and say, well, now it needs to be demolished because we found something upstairs. So it almost seems to your benefit, but
The
to,
engineer will say it's structurally okay above, but it needs, it's got the lead paint on the cedar shaped sides, it's been painted once, okay? That's fun to deal with. It's got the old windows that don't open, a couple of them do, change all those. Get the door ripped, it's like everything you gotta add to it. You gotta, basically, all you have is a shell that's in the way of fixing everything.
but I'm just saying by way of warning that you should be confident about about that, because if the engineer were to assess the foundation and everything turns out that it can be rehabilitated, then you wouldn't want to come back later and say, well, it's actually the top now, that's the reason for it. And sort of, I'm
wouldn't
giving
do
you
that because it'd be lying, and I've never lied to the board. I
I'm
present
not,
my view, which may be different, but.
yeah, I'm not doubting you, I'm just saying that it's probably, it would behoove you not to necessarily say that I know it's good or to trust that engineer, because then you'd be left with little recourse if it was turned out that there was something wrong and it was just the bottom that was analyzed. I'm basically
I understand what you're
okay,
saying.
okay.
It's studs, you can see everything. I've had the engineer.
Right,
I've had
right.
Dave
That's
Adams,
nice to be able
probably
to-
smarter than the engineers, and we just, but
Yeah, that's nice.
I
when you can
appreciate
see.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'd rather just get this done, because this is a headache. This is gonna drag on for years.
Well,
Man.
we're asking you to take a little time, and the law says 180 days.
Is there like, what's a little time mean? Do we have like, is it 2 months, 3 months, a year? What's that?
I'm not saying it's gonna drag on for years. The model law says give it 180 days. I would certainly like not to drag on 180 days, which is 6 months.
Okay.
I think the next step is for Chris and Martin and I to talk about how we outline what needs to be done and work with you to do it. And I would hope that we can begin to do that within the next couple of days or week and, move forward. But we need to bring the village attorney. He's familiar with hardship as well. We need to bring him into the process too at this point.
But keep in mind that is competitive with the village's need to preserve historic housing. So that will still be part of the issue no matter what.
I understand that.
And I have,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I understand your frustration that you would like the answers to be readily available and more straightforward, and I can definitely sympathize with you about that, for what it's worth.
Thank you.
We all do sympathize with you. We're doing what we're supposed to do as this board.
Okay, well, I guess that's that. So what are we doing now? What's our next step?
Chris and I will speak with Martin. Chris will
I'll
probably
get
be
in touch
the
with you.
person who's gonna communicate with you, but we'll get some get on the same page with the village attorney, who's the person most versed in this process.
Okay. So he's got to give you legal advice on whether do it or don't do it, basically? Is that what
We're working on behalf of the village, and we need to bring the village attorney into this now. So.
I'm just trying to understand what he's gonna do that.
Well, we're all volunteers.
I
We're-
understand.
we
I'm
need
sorry
to-
if I feel, it's
I-
not personal anyway, I'm just kind of frustrated because I'm a slow learner and this whole contributing structure. Really, I was like, oh, there's a list of contributing structures. Well, there's no list. Everything you look up says it's all contributing. So I'm like, okay, it's all contributing, that's great. Your point is very valid that there's not a lot of this particular model of this house. It's a Sears house, so it was like a modular house of the day. It was the cheapest house you could buy. Came on the train track right there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, how significant is that really?
I was actually gonna ask that question. This was a Sears product?
I believe so.
Okay, it struck me as being a manufactured house, which again is important to the history of building in this country. I'm not sure that it actually was made by Sears Roebuck, but there were like 7 or 8 different manufacturers. And that's a moderately important criteria. It's not as important as the fact that it's unique to the village, but it's important, it's worth saving. And I mean, my point is there any way that we can save this structure? And I'm not asking for a direct answer, I'm
I
asking.
can give you a direct answer.
What?
There's no way I'm saving the structure.
Uh-huh.
If you want to save it, I will help you. I will facilitate it to the best of my ability. But I
Can we
really,
talk?
Excuse me?
Can we talk after?
We can definitely talk, yeah, I'd appreciate that, just, yeah, we don't want it torn down, but we're just like, it's like, how you gonna, you know, you can't, we have to live, and it's just like, you know, it's just kind of like, but yeah, if you want to, I'll help you facilitate that.
I mean, the thing is that I would try to find other people who would be interested in this as a project whereby your structure is saved.
That's a very reasonable thing, yes.
Well, I hope,
And
and I hope we can do it.
I agree, we want you to come out of this somewhat whole, we want the house to come out of this somewhat whole, and I think finding a way to work together to do that is a fair thing to
Working
do.
together means us spending money. I make my money in my back, and my back's tired, and that's what us doing this does, unless you find somebody that wants to move it or wherever, and I'll help do it. And I'll bring an estimate or something, we'll help do it, facilitate it, but
I mean, it's simply like whether it's a hardship or not. Is it a hardship to move? Is it a hardship to be able to do the reverse of the Sears thing, take it apart and move it? But my point is,
if you can find somebody, I'll take it apart. And they just come up and I'll load the trailer with the parts and pieces. Okay? I will do that.
Well, I wish I could resign right here.
Seriously, I will take it, I've taken barns apart, we've moved barns and put them back up. I know how to take things apart without destroying it.
It sounds to me like we could work this out.
And if that would be agreeable, let's do that. I'll take it apart and I'll pull all the nails too. Won't be pulling nails. It'll be real easy. Put it back.
This is being recorded.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I sounded like I'm coming off hard, I get frustrated.
We will, Chris and I will speak to the village attorney, and Chris will get back to you, and we'll begin to work on however we can move forward with this, okay? Thank you.
All right, so I will hear from you this week.
I will talk to you this week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me go on so long.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Amy.
Good luck.
Okay, number 5, Westridge.
So I guess my customer's not here, so this is for, Westford. Wayford, sorry.
5 Western?
Scott Hayford.
Okay.
They asked me to go represent, he's not a customer here, so go, I'll get questions.
Is this, I'm looking at the minutes from last month to make sure we cover the questions we expressed. Is this a paintable vinyl window? Is
I
he
don't
still?
think they have paintable vinyl.
Okay,
It's not designed to be painted. Vinyl is, that's the whole point.
Do you have a sample you're gonna show us?
I do. Anybody wants to take a
Yes,
look at it?
Thank you.
Sure. It's not the actual, it's the same series.
It's the same
window,
series, but,
not the same style, it's a corner cut
okay,
of a double hung window.
okay,
We're putting a slider, like trying to put a 2-panel slider window.
into the spot that has the
Existing opening.
3 windows.
3 casements.
Right. The framework's identical. I don't think that was the issue though, right? The issue is whether or not it is paintable. Was it a color issue, a material issue? I wasn't at the last meeting, I was told not to come. So,
Okay.
I think we also asked for additional context for
Mhm.
the replacement, the window that's being replaced.
Right, and Scott sent some photos, which are printed out.
So,
Package, so.
I guess in the
If
minutes,
we're not
we
on the
say,
digital copy you have.
image of the property that shows the context of the carriage
Oh, I
house in
see.
relation to the
Got it.
main house was requested. And
Yeah, I got it. I just didn't see it.
do we have an image that shows the context of the carriage house in relation to the main house, Chris?
No, we don't have an image showing the carriage house in relation to
You
the
guys
main
all set
house.
with
We have
this?
an image showing the facade of showing various different styles of windows. We've got a shot from the back side showing the window in question, but it isn't just, a fully zoomed out shot. I know there's a hill there, I don't know if one can reasonably get up into the woods to take a shot.
So this would be to the left.
This is on the back, this is the window in question, which is on.
The back of the
side
carriage house.
Yep.
Okay.
And you say that it's not easily viewed by anybody?
It's not
Because there's woods
visible from the road, for
Mhm.
sure, and also this property is kind of set back in its own little, almost like gated fortress area.
Nice.
So it's hard to even notice that this building exists from the road, it's true. But no, we don't have photos that really show this. Because there is a main house, 5 West Ridges, that was from the state, and this is like the gatehouse that you first arrive at before going to that estate, so.
So I'm not clear on which window, this picture,
Right.
does this show the window?
I think this is the one that would be
Replaced?
The one in the
replaced.
bottom left is the window to be
Right, but that
replaced.
window that's being replaced is not in this picture.
It's not in that
here.
photo, no.
So it'd be the left and around the back.
Yeah, this is around, that picture is
This
of,
one.
Right,
it's not of the facade in question. The only picture we have of the facade in question is.
And where is this wall in relation to this wall?
yeah, I don't understand where
This
this
wall.
window is on the property.
Back to the left or around the?
I don't have detailed notes
Oh,
showing.
maybe the contractor.
Yeah, where maybe he's been on site, he could talk, but,
Do you know?
Scott was asked to provide some photos showing.
It's just
This-
one, it's just these three are.
This
one-
wall.
It's these three are one being replaced.
Uh-huh.
The rest of them are around.
And but this wall showing the 3, where is that in relation to this wall? Is it on to the left?
I honestly don't.
Okay.
It looks like this is actually on the main house, and this is on the carriage shed, so I'm not sure it is in relation.
Thank you.
I'm guessing at that, and I think that's the thing we're struggling with, because if it's a window on the rear of the carriage shed, that's not street facing, and I think he is trying to demonstrate with this picture of the side of the house how many styles of window there already are at play on this structure. But I think the one thing we wanted to understand was, where is this visible from, and how
Chris?
prominent is it? So,
Perhaps Chris was able to
Yeah.
say that
Well-
that wasn't street facing.
Yeah, we know that it's on the backside facing the forest, as it were. It's not,
Is it Zillow, can anybody Zillow?
well, yeah, you Google
So this
satellite
is,
map.
Have you got a picture of the house, Chris?
this is the window he's talking about.
This is the only picture that was
I
provided,
don't know if
but
it's gonna come up.
there.
Like this, this one house is here, but it doesn't exist as this house. This crazy looking bay, there goes the short guy.
Going as,
Yeah.
kind of towards the golf course, you look up this very
Yeah,
large.
yeah, I see it, thank you.
Is this the- is this the house?
This window. Okay.
The carriage house, this is the main house, and this carriage house is down.
Yeah.
down-
Guys, Aaron figured it out.
I figured it out. Here, I'm gonna bring my thing.
The carriage house is a separate
There's a
residence?
separate
Yes.
structure from, here's the main. road.
Yeah, it looks like it's off
Can't
in the
really
middle of-
see this carriage house.
Do you want to see it, Dave?
No, what I have is the
Yeah,
property inventory form, so here's this is this window right here, is this,
Okay.
right?
So
So
coming down.
that's this whole thing, this bay goes here but doesn't exist in this picture. and then that's the short guy, it's this guy, and the door is right here. I think this window is this one here on the side.
Mhm.
And if you look at Chris's, you can see that it's back in a nook of the woods, it looks like, is that right, Chris?
Yeah, well, this is up on the edge of Westridge Road.
Right.
But the point is that there's no neighbor, it's
Nobody's
all
gonna
forest
see it.
back here, that's, right, but thanks for pointing
Thank
that
you.
out.
Yeah, I just help them understand what the heck is going on.
Yeah,
Can I ask you a question?
Do you want them?
sure, Pat.
Is there something special about that particular window that makes it good for egress?
This.
Is that?
I mean, is it designed as
And this is.
a push-away
not even
window
houses.
or just a window?
Two-panel,
This.
replacement window for,
Uh-huh.
the opening that we had 3 casements.
So egress was throwing me off, so egress was throwing me off as well.
Well, in other words, if to be able to get out, get you out of the street.
Mhm.
But in other words, for me, a window that you can just push the whole frame, no broken glass, no.
But are we sure egress was actually meant to be?
Yes.
Yes,
That
that's
was
That's the
the
purpose of the
argument
application.
at the last meeting.
I see, okay, thank you.
sleeping room where, should there be a fire, they currently can't get out.
It's gonna be nice to have them. Most of us told them.
So the question is this actually an egress window?
Oh, it is an egress.
Okay, all right.
Yes, definitely is, but I think he was asking, is this slider even more easy? Is there something about its design
Okay,
which,
thank you.
I guess the fact that it's 2 panels instead of 3 and provides a bigger space. Sure.
I would certainly want to slide in and jump as opposed to cranking and.
Let's not even joke about egress right now. Okay, are there any other questions related to the proposed window replacement? Comments?
Seems reasonable.
Can I see the piece again? Thank you. Sure. So the egress is based on the fact that one of the panes is big enough for a human body to fit through, right?
Absolutely.
And there are 2.
It's a sliding panel,
It's one that way?
whichever way you want.
And how's it going to be installed? Vertically, I mean, sliding?
Well, it's
sideways?
sliding panel, it's a 2-panel slider, the handing is determined by the customer. Which, and one stationary, and one goes into the other, depending on which one you choose. That's how that works.
Thank you. Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's actually gonna have more of an opening, because you're shrinking 3 into 2. It's in the same opening, we don't modify it.
Well, I was concerned about the vertical space.
We put custom windows, so we get the exact measurements and they fit the exact opening.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron's got the historic register nomination up, and it just points to this carriage house as particularly significant. And it's,
It says, part of a complex which is a very important example underlined of shingle-style architecture as applied to house and carriage barn.
it does seem like there have been a lot of changes since the nomination and the
Yeah.
photograph, which is really Unfortunate. Do you have a sense, have you seen the existing windows, or have you gone in and measured?
It's probably about 3 months ago now, going back. The reason for the replacement is that they are inferior, they're not efficient whatsoever, and they are rotten.
And you say the size is exactly the same.
Yeah, so when we do the insert windows, it's, we use the existing frame to mount it, so that's how it works. So no, there is no new framework being done.
And is the proposed window, does it include any buttons, grids, grills?
I do not have that on the proposal, what he had purchased. It is a possibility to do that. We could do removable grids too. I mean, you could have them in between glass, or
No, I just wanted to make sure there were not grids between the glass.
he has them without grids. But I mean, I know they are consistent. The other ones have sculptured grids on them at the moment. If it's something that has to be matched, that can be done with the vinyl window.
Any questions, comments?
Is this the only window in the room from which egress is needed?
It's my understanding is it's the only window in this room from which egress is possible. This is, if you're going to get out and fire, this is the opening we'll be going through.
Thank you.
Liz, I'm curious as to what your question about the mullions.
Oh, I'm looking at the picture of all the other examples of windows on the house, and most have mullions of some kind.
So do you think?
It's a mixture, but that's why I wondered what the proposal was. We certainly can't undo grids between the glass, but to clarify that there weren't any. I am not sure grids on the proposed window would be visually appealing, so I'm not asking for that, but I wanted to make sure there were not grids between the glass. But there is, I hate to try to count the number of different architectural or fenestration styles.
Aaron agrees with you, you couldn't see, but Aaron agrees with your assessment that no grids.
Yeah, no, but I wanted to clarify that. So adding to the variety would probably not be a good idea. Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
Yes. I move that H Park provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 5 Westridge Lane to replace the window under criteria 2B, 3A, 3B, and 5.
I second.
Although I struggle with this decision, I feel like this structure is far beyond the slippery slope of window problems. So in the name of egress, I will vote yes this time.
David, yes.
Aaron, no.
Bernie, yes.
Pat, yes.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, thank you very much for your patience tonight.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, 77 Beaver Street.
Okay, so I'm just a little bit, not unfamiliar with the procedure, with the documentation for us to move forward.
I will send out permission to the applicant, to Scott, but I'll also send one to you guys.
Yeah, I guess your deal will go permits.
Yes,
I
yeah.
just want to make sure we're.
Sure, I'm sorry, you see go permit?
I'm from Home Depot,
Okay, got it.
they do work.
And you want
My name is Jeff.
Joe, okay, good. Gotcha.
Thank you, Joe. Hi,
Hello.
welcome back.
Thanks.
So, tell us about what you'd like us to consider tonight.
The proposal is that we want to complete the repairs on our house by putting the corner boards on the siding of the house. I attached some photos where we're illustrating that the wood is damaged. And it's recommended that corner boards would prevent the water damage. And then we want to replace a roof. It's an overhang on the carriage house. We attached a draft or a sketch of what is proposed.
That's not replacing, that's adding. So we want to add to the carriage house structure. It would be 4 feet. It would come out about 4 feet. You can see the sketch in there. So we have a lot of problems with the water and the snow building up there, and we just think it would kind of add a little bit of charm to that back carriage house. It was converted to an apartment back in the 80s. So it's really just a simple roof overhang, if you will.
It replaces what was there. There was a little roof.
There's like a
Yeah, there was a little,
it's like a-
yes, there was, she's right, there was like a tiny little.
It's just like a little drip edge to keep water.
Correct,
That's about it.
right,
Okay, yeah, so
yeah.
it's not
Because
really-
the snow gets in there, and we had a lot of rot that we had to repair, and that's what we're trying to prevent from happening again.
Snow goods in work.
It piles up against the side of what is that apartment, that carriage
Down on the
house,
ground,
yeah.
yeah.
And the way it's kind of pitched too, you know, the driveway from the apartment next door, the water just kind of finds its way there. But mostly it's the snow, and we just think it would add a little character to the structure. I don't know if that all makes sense.
And this shed roof, this 4-foot shed roof would have the same shingles as the roof that
Yes.
exists on
Yes,
the-
it would be kept the same as the rest of the house.
Right.
So,
Yeah, let's see.
can you tell me which is the accurate picture of your carriage house?
They're both accurate. One's older and one's current.
So this is the current picture?
That's current picture.
Okay, that's
So
what I,
the sliding doors are not there anymore.
No,
They were rotten.
completely rotten.
They didn't slide, actually. They were just
Yes,
decorative.
they're decorative.
They were rotten.
They were installed back in the 80s when they converted the garage.
We don't know when they were installed.
so there's still a drip edge across the front of the building, correct?
No, there's not.
There's a
Okay.
small roof line that goes to, that there's a roof line there,
Okay, this roof line,
that roof line.
Right.
That's all that's there.
but there's nothing across the
There's
front?
nothing
Correct.
across. The only difference between that photograph and now is that it's been painted blue. The siding has been painted blue.
So the drip edge that was there when the doors were there has been removed?
It was part of the
Okay,
doors.
the rail.
Am I missing the illustration on exactly how it's being supported, the proposed roof,
There's a
It's
sketch.
just a sketch.
So do you have a,
In the sketch, we see that there's like a post in the outer edge, and the outer edge, is there a center post, or is that?
No, it's a supported from the structure along, just like a truss, basically.
Okay, so it doesn't require you to be like cantilever attached in such a way, it doesn't need.
It
support
doesn't
inside.
require it, no.
Okay. So is that to say there aren't even posts on the outer edge? It'll be like an awning,
Basically,
a self-support.
That's exactly what it would be
I see.
like.
So it's not that there are posts missing, there won't be posts.
No, there won't
missing.
be posts.
Is-
What's holding up?
Its own, like, I believe it just maybe affixed to the building. Yeah, the outer edge won't have a supporting post.
But there's beams leading back to the.
Right here, like, yeah.
Okay, I see, yeah, just like, just the ends of it are holding it up.
Right, okay. You know.
Gotcha, thank you.
Dave, do you have any questions?
I don't. I've studied this house, but I walked to CPS. And I'm completely in support of the corner boards. I think it will make no difference in terms of the aesthetic or historical impression one would get from the house, and it would contribute to preserving it.
And did you have any questions or comments about the
No concern about the
Carriage.
carriage
those overhang?
extension.
Erin, do you have any questions?
My only question is about the pitch of that carriage shed.
It's
Roof.
to, yeah,
Is
it's to
it-
match what's existing at the gable, and that leaves like an 8 or 9, 12 pitch.
Okay.
So it's fairly steep.
Should shed the snow.
Yes.
Pat, do you have any questions?
Can we separate these out?
Yes, I think we should. So do you have questions about either? Want to start with one or the other?
No, but I'd like to make a comment about the corner boards. One of the pictures you provided had an historic picture of the house with corner boards where you wanted to put them. So I recall that one of the pictures that you provided had a picture of your house, historic picture of your house with corner boards. Is that correct?
It just had a historic picture of the house,
Well, I mean, historic, like,
the old version, this one from the 60s, I think it was. This photo that was taken in the 60s that was in the files at the Fenimore House. It doesn't look like there's corner boards on there, you can't, it's a pretty grainy photo. Is that the one you're
the
talking
house
about?
was, the picture that I saw was tan.
Oh, the tan picture, yeah, that's a current photo.
That's when we bought it, it was tan.
So when we bought it, yes. the
Yes, there
tan
were some
photos.
corner boards, but there were
This
corner
one?
boards
Right,
around the whole structure.
This one, sir, yeah, that has corner boards on the side,
Right,
right there.
Yeah, that's,
but that's on the, oh,
That's on
that's
the side of the house.
chimney enclosure.
mhm.
That's right, so there were corner boards on the house before we did the repairs.
In some places, but not,
Were they all the way, were they on the
no,
front
no,
corner?
we're adding them to
They're
service.
not all the way around the house, no.
Because that's an addition.
That was on the house before we bought it, according to
But I
the
mean, that's-
documents in the
That's not how the
Fenimore.
house was built.
According to the documents that were in the Fenimore files,
Uh-huh.
it says that that facade was put on sometime between 1915 and 1955, or something like that.
When you say that facade, which facade are you referring to?
Let me just pull it up and read it word for word. So I don't misspeak. It says, sun porch on east facade added between 1915 and 1964. Chimney on west facade added after 1964. So that's when the corner boards would have been put on sometime after 1964.
And it's not in that picture from earlier on from the.
There is no chimney on that picture in 1962.
Did you have any additional questions about the corner boards, Pat?
Is that right?
have additional questions about the corner boards?
No, for some reason I thought they were on the house approval. And the only place that I see them is on
The chimney,
the chimney enclosure.
yeah.
I think I read something somewhere, something I had read kind of threw me in that direction as well, that there were originally corner boards, but I think it was something that I had
The
read.
evidence seems to be that there were.
That there was probably some confusion in between how it was written, because I had the same impression too.
Ernie, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, we talked about breaking this vote out between the application for the overhang on the rear building and the corner boards. So would anybody like to make a motion regarding the overhang on the rear building? We're gonna pay you extra tonight, Dave.
Triple my salary.
At least.
Okay, so I'll move that H Park provides for appropriateness for the project at 77 Beaver Street, specifically the overhang of the carriage house. Under the criteria 2B, 3A, 3B, 3D.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bertie. Any discussion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Liz votes
That
yes.
says yes.
David, yes.
I'm Bernie, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, now regarding the application or installation of corner boards on the structure, would anybody like to make a motion?
I will. Moving that H Park provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 77 Beaver Street, specifically the additional placement of corner boards under criteria 2B, 3A, 3C, and 3D.
A, C, and D?
A, C, and D.
Okay. Okay, Pat seconded. Thank you, Pat. Any discussion?
So my only comment is that I'm pretty sure corner boards would not have been part of this house when it was built. This prairie style was about verticality and horizontal.
Horizontal,
And
I did the same thing.
anything going up and down was not part of that particular style, and it really was a bit reactionary against colonial revival, which does the columns and the, pilasters and other parts of the building that go up and down. So I understand your interest in using them as a way of improving maintenance, but it's not part of the original character of the house.
I have a question about how the corner boards actually work in relation to the existing end-to-end boards. How do you actually cut the existing boards, or do you just put the corner boards over the existing board?
It comes back to the existing siding where the siding is basically woven to accept, whatever dimension corner board there would be, and then that would get sealed to the siding essentially.
So you still have your end of your boards exposed, but for the sealant. This allows you to seal it better than
the corner. The end grain of the siding terminates into the projection of the thickness of the corner board.
So it caps it.
Yeah.
But if something goes wrong with that sealant, then you still have the problem with moisture getting in there and being wicked by the end of the board and not potentially drying as readily. I'm not saying that the sealant would fail, but I'm just saying that if the sealant were to fail, then you would still have the end grain sucking up the moisture, but it wouldn't have the sun to dry it out on a regular basis because it would be capped. And like I say, I'm not saying the sealant would fail, I'm just trying to get an idea.
The existing corners have already failed, they're already rotted.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So if we don't put corner boards in, we have to replace all the siding. They're already, as you can see from some of the pictures we gave you, they're already shot. So it's either put in corner boards or take off all the siding and redo all the siding.
Yeah.
It can't be left the way that it is.
Right.
Which, when we originally got approval from this last spring, what was the gentleman that came out? I think Jackson understood that and said, yeah, you can replace them because they're already rotted.
But we already discussed that Jackson didn't agree to corner boards because that's a decision of this board, and.
He agreed when he came to our premise.
But that's not Jackson's decision to make.
We didn't know that. But again, we get back to the same scenario. Something's gonna have to be replaced. It's already rotted, so it's either putting in corner boards or replacing all the siding.
So you're gonna cover up the rot with the corner boards, is that?
No, we're gonna cut those corners out
Let Jake
and
explain
stop it, yeah.
He's the construction guy.
Where the corners come, on the outside corners, they'll get cut back to except, I believe it's 4.5 inch wide corner boards. So that takes care of already the start of the rotted siding.
And the corner board material is probably 5/4, like a thicker material, so the 3/4, say, boards terminated to this thicker, it basically puts a little cap on the end of the exposed.
So the boards will no longer meet and the corner boards won't go over them, they're actually gonna trim back siding and have the
Yep.
corner boards making a corner as opposed to enclosing the butt ends of the sides the butt ends of the siding are not gonna hit a right angle at all then. You're gonna trim that material off and set a board in?
Correct. Yep, as if it was done with corner boards traditionally, installed first and cut in between.
And that takes us back to the fact that this house and houses of this style did not traditionally have corner boards.
I know, but I'm just stating that that's how you put siding on installation if you have corner boards. To answer your question, is the corner board over top or recessed to the sheathing?
And are there any other techniques by which siding is put on other than this weaving technique or having corner boards? Or is that pretty much the way it is?
Pretty much the way it is.
Pat?
If I may, I'd like to speak in favor of the corner boards simply because the American Foursquare is a house that sometimes had them, sometimes didn't have them, sometimes had them on the first floor and not the second. So it concerns me that we end up in a situation where we're unable to allow corner boards on a house that may have historically, not this specific house, but that style. And I lived for 50 years in American Foursquare, and it had corner boards. So.
And I understand what you're saying. I expressed my concerns at an earlier meeting about this particular house and the corner boards. But now the trimming of the boards back and the inset of the corner boards at the corner.
That's unfortunately, that is something that has been historically done as well. In other words, sometimes they were just a cover with caulking currently, but a lot of times they were cut in. Let in, I guess is the.
Let in. Don't let them in.
And,
Oh, please, let them in.
Are you caulking and sealing and preventing moisture damage?
Yes, that's the whole goal.
When our builder first approached this with telling us that we should do this, the reason was to stop the rot and to preserve the siding. Not necessarily because we thought aesthetically the house would look better with corner boards. It was a decision that we made. And when Jackson came out and we discussed it, it was a preventative measure. It wasn't like, hey, let's just put corner boards on our house because we think they look good. We have noticed that the majority of four-square homes in our community have corner boards. So I don't understand why historically it changes anything, because already, as you're mentioning, this is a traditional look for this structure, and it is fixing a problem. That was the whole idea behind. It cost us money to do this, but it saves us money because it stops the rot.
I understand your argument, and I understand what you're saying, and yet, and I'm not gonna belabor this, I will just say that, as we talked about with an earlier applicant this evening, we're not looking at other houses, we're looking at what remains of the historic fabric of your house.
Right.
We know how it looked historically, and that is my concern. I'm hearing you, my concern is changing that appearance, that historic appearance, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
It is a drastic change.
I'll say,
But I also.
it's not a drastic change.
You don't think it is?
Again, walking past it, having looked at
It's
it
not a
multiple
drastic
times
change.
again, and, because that was, when we had our previous meeting, I had not seen the house. And, it had not come up, and so I then, after that meeting, went by it, and like I said, I routinely go by it because I have to walk that direction. And it wouldn't make a drastic difference. It would not change the horizontal gestalt of the house and its look. I think that if we were to, vote against corner boards, what we would have is a combination. There are some corner boards, and then there are places where there aren't any corner boards, and I don't see any historic value in preserving that status quo. And so that, that's why, again, after walking by and looking and thinking about it, it seems to me that completing the corner board placement does not disrupt the historic appearance and its contribution to the village. It's a plus in terms of maintenance. It makes sense in terms of now the house sort of fits in with corner boards on all those edges.
Well, I'd like to walk back the drastic. The drastic was a little bit drastic, but it is significant when you look at it as opposed to having corner boards, especially if someone were to paint it a different color.
Right, they're all painted the same color, and now you've got a situation where we already have corner boards on half the home, and we don't have it on, we're just trying to finish.
I understand that, but from the street point of view, most people walking by, they wouldn't see that. And is there any guarantee that some other person that would buy the house wouldn't paint them completely contrasting colors?
There's never a guarantee about that.
Yeah, and I can't.
No, and that's that's kind of what scares me.
Just isn't it?
Look, there's plenty of homes in the town that have those painted like that.
Sure.
There's homes all over the town that have
But
corner
we're gonna
boards
get
that
into
are
the
painted
whole-
a different
It's
color.
about this house. And so when it's about this house, I did go and pull this record from the Fenimore Museum to look at, is it structurally important that there are no corner boards on this house? It doesn't mention anything in the features of the house that the horizontal line is important. It doesn't say that it's unique because there's no corner boards on it. It doesn't say that that has any historic importance to this particular house. So that's why I'm not sure why lack of corner boards is a historic differentiation.
What it does say is that this home has a prairie style influence.
Yes, it does say
And
that.
the prairie style is horizontal. That's the only thing that I would say about that.
That's what, you're right, it does say prairie style influence on it.
May I interject? I read that, and I'm struck by the fact that that particular American Foursquare, that somebody would enter that it had prairie-style influence. Could somebody tell me what those influences?
Perhaps that was exactly what they meant, was that it didn't have the,
It does,
The
it does
vertical.
have a stained glass window in the front of the house.
Mine
which
didn't
is-
either.
So it,
Yeah.
you know, that, when I looked at historic architectural, you know, prairie style had stained glass windows. There's one there, and then there's a small window on the side of the house. And that's the only other thing I could point to.
And one of the things that I would say about the prairie style is that the builder's style, which is what it used to be called before 1980, was essentially that. It was created by builders. It integrated all kinds of styles. Queen Anne is an important part of that.
That's what vernacular is.
Right, exactly.
It's all kinds of different things.
So the builder might have been exposed to the work of Wright and people like that, but on the other hand, who actually wrote these original? Who wrote the
Yeah,
Bible?
they-
Who wrote the Bible?
Yeah.
I mean, it's-
Maybe they just forgot to put them on. Maybe they were always gonna have them. Who knows?
Maybe they're trying to.
Say that again.
Maybe they're trying to save money. Yeah, so.
You know, my recollection from teaching is that very often the people who are doing the survey are students.
That's what I was just pointing out to Aaron. And it certainly supervised by an extremely competent instructor. Graduate students were doing this. I understand there are both sides to the argument, and I think we should vote, see where it lands.
We have
We have a motion, right?
Okay, thank you. It's been that long, sorry.
We have a motion, right?
Yes,
Yes, we do.
we have a motion, we have discussion, now we have a vote, right?
Yes.
We have discussed,
That
right?
vote, you know, the motion is that
We allow the corner
are we allowed
boards.
to put them on?
Yes.
Pat votes yes.
David votes yes.
Aaron, no.
Bernie votes no.
I'm really struggling with this. I will vote for the application of the corner boards.
Thank you.
May I ask, did we just cite the criteria for this motion? Did we not do that? The same, okay.
A, 2B,
2B, 3A, 3C, 3D.
Okay, I didn't know if that was just for the carriage barn, that's.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, 15 Church Street.
Oh my God, we're only at number 3.
We did number,
Will is,
Okay.
Yeah, we already did that.
Oh,
Will's not gonna make it this evening.
Oh, good.
So,
am I allowed to?
you may, can I go to the bathroom right through there? Okay, we're gonna take a 2-minute break for anybody who needs it, sorry, folks. Will is not here tonight.
Can I be allowed to leave early? I mean, I didn't think it was early.
It's dark. Yes, Pat, you can, thank you for hanging in there. So Will is not here tonight, and without him here, Chris, the application he is proposing,
Don't we just need a hearing for demolition of the porch? That's what, it seems to
for
me
what?
that's what was next, for
what's-
the church.
last time we talked to Will, we suggested, or it had been suggested that maybe he move the addition in, so that you don't create
bump it in.
one sheer face, and he did that, he altered the plans to
Okay,
nudge it in, and then he sort of popped it out the back a little.
okay,
But I don't know if he was actually ready to come, he's just been, he went to the ZBA to get his variance, which he got, and the momentum kept his application in the hopper here, but I think he's still judging the final plans. He's got, you can see, the
It
addition.
seemed to me that we could just schedule the public hearing for the demolition of the porch.
The porch he's held off on for now. He had made a list of items, things he was doing, and he basically backpedaled on the porch and didn't propose it yet. He still intends to do it, but I think he was overwhelmed.
All right, then.
Okay, well, we can do two things in his absence. We can schedule a public hearing in case he wants it, because we know that was on the list, right?
A public hearing for,
Demolition of the porch.
we could, yes, we could, absolutely.
And we could always, you could check with him, and if he doesn't
If he
want it,
doesn't want it, sure.
then, but it's
Right.
on the cards for October if necessary.
Right.
And we could give him some comment on the proposed kind of jog in, but we'll
Right.
do that at the end of the meeting when nobody else is waiting, so we don't keep other folks waiting.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay, Josh,
So nothing on
nothing on Church. We're on 10 Chestnut. We run around the,
Yes. It's a
Okay.
field change. Yeah.
Field change, yes, does everyone have a drawing, everyone got the drawings and things like that?
we got it. Okay.
With the original application, we were planning to do shrubs down the private driveway, from Pine Boulevard into Fenimore Lane, along the Nancy's property. And they have asked, that we change the shrubs to a fence. So that's what we were asking to do, is to put up a fence instead of shrubs.
And thank you for coming, Clancy's. Thank you all for cooperating and working together on this. And I assume you're here to support the application?
Yes.
That's great. Let me ask. You're here to support the application, question mark? Thank you, Josh, for working with your neighbors. Do you have the other approvals you need for a 6-foot fence? Chris, is there anything else that needs to get done? Do we need to make anything contingent upon anything else?
No, we have approval of the immediate neighbors.
Okay,
I have a question, motivations.
go ahead.
What's the purpose of what was the purpose of the initial shrubs and what's the purpose of the fence?
There's traffic that comes down the private driveway, because it accesses
Sure.
Fenimore Lane, 10 Chestnut, kind of all of that.
Yeah.
It also gets a fair amount of foot traffic, and it kind of goes right past
Sure.
your windows, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So that was the idea for the shrubs,
Okay.
and the fence does the same thing.
The fence will
just
be
to-
probably even more effective as a.
Just a slightly different one.
It's a very narrow area. right?
Yeah, the driveway is.
Yeah, I figure someone's gonna stand up there and high five people.
And then at night you get like people's headlights in your living room and that can be annoying.
Okay. Did you have something you needed to say?
Are they on Pine Boulevard? Is that where they live?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What number Pine, Brian?
Excuse me?
What number Pine is it? Yes. 19 Pine, thank you. Just so the minutes, so it's this house, so it's 19 Pine. Okay. Okay, Dave, did you have any questions?
No.
Okay, I know, it's adorable. Aaron, do you have any questions? Any other questions, Bernie?
Nope.
Really quickly, tell us about the fence, Josh.
It's approximately 6 feet in height, and it will step as the grade goes down there. It's pressure treated, it is identical on both sides, partially just because because we'd be putting up the fence, the nice side goes to the neighbors, but the primary view of the fence would be not from the neighbor's side, and so we are opting to do a fence that is banded on both sides because we can use thinner material that has a little more aesthetic to it than if we just did it one-sided. The structure would be heavier and it's more obvious that you have a good side and a bad side. And so this one was designed to have sort of a decent looking side on both sides.
Okay.
And how long are the panels?
The panels are usually approximately about 8 feet.
And again, you're kind of custom building this into place, so it's really gonna kind of.
Yeah, it won't necessarily be like every 8 feet it drops.
Right.
We'll probably do that more at the top and then as at the bottom, as it gets flatter, we'll have longer sections that are the same height.
Do you guys have any comments? Okay. Anything else you want us to know? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Move that in-part provide a certificate of appropriateness
Can I ask
for
a
the
question?
project.
Sure, wait.
Sure,
Whoa.
sorry. Not get in there. Did you, contemplate, like, that fence to me doesn't necessarily reflect the surrounding areas? And I was wondering, were there any other options in terms of, or maybe I don't know, maybe I'm way off base here, but.
In terms of aesthetics or fencing?
Yeah, in terms of the
shrubs, or-
aesthetics, and being more in keeping with people trying to, have, aesthetic fences, like I think it's a fine fence, but, I was just wondering whether you had any other options in terms of the aesthetics of it.
I don't really have a horse in the game in terms of what it looks like. As long as it's reasonable, I don't have strong opinions. Once you get up towards about a 6-foot fence, you start to become limited.
Oh, you're right,
You can
yeah.
kind of do like a rough sawn
Right,
padlock
okay,
fence.
okay. Say no more, I appreciate that, just for clarification, once you get to that size, yeah. Okay.
Down around 4 feet,
Yep.
you can do pickets and all kinds of different things,
Okay.
but privacy fences that tall usually.
And that would be your choice as well?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Wouldn't it be similar to what you have going down?
It is similar to what we have on the far side of
So it would,
10 Chestnut.
Okay, great,
it would be, keeping things the same.
sure, yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. As long as it works for the neighbors, and good fences make good neighbors in this situation. Let's go with that thought.
Yes, we work.
Thank you,
with
Dave.
the neighborhood, so. As part of providing a certificate of appropriateness for the project at, I'll call it 10 Chestnut Street. Erecting the fence in place of the plans. Under criteria 2C, 3A, and 3B.
Great. Do we have a second?
I second.
Super. Any discussion? Liz votes yes.
Aaron, yes.
David, yes.
Bernie, yes.
Thank you. Thank you all for waiting.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's been a long wait tonight. Okay, Emily, would you like to come and talk to us? Have a seat. Tell us what you'd like to do.
I need to replace my roof, it's leaking. I think we figured out where the leak came from. Replacing it with the main, there's three parts of the roof. The main roof is all the roofs are asphalt. The main roof, the side roof, and the porch is all asphalt. I'm gonna replace it with asphalt, but I wanted to add a snow belt. So the change in materials from the asphalt to the copper for the snow belt, and also for the porch roof to be fully copper.
Is that the front porch?
That is the front porch, yes.
And then the side, little side roof? is
Side
that-
would be asphalt snow
Okay.
belt.
Okay, asphalt and snow belt.
And I do have pictures of the current roof, if you need to.
No, we don't need to.
You can walk by it, but.
So the only real change is the snow belt addition and then the porch roof in copper instead of asphalt. Dave, do you have any questions?
No questions from Aaron.
Okay, you probably walk by there the most,
I
although I
do,
walk
all
by
the
there pretty
time.
regularly.
Got a lot of copper on that street, on that block now.
We're gonna start calling it Copper Street instead of River Street.
I know, it will be a little obnoxious.
You have to
at first,
keep
but I
up with
think
the neighbors.
Yeah, right, no, I can't, no, but,
You got better landscaping.
oh, well, thanks,
Yeah.
we'll keep working on it.
Yeah, Okay, Dave, would you like to make a motion?
Sure would. Move that in part provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 19 River Street under criteria 2B, 2C, 3C, and 3D.
Great,
I second.
thank you, Bernie. Any discussion?
I should add this, I apologize. I think he's gonna put a copper strip at the very top to help with the
Moss.
moss
Okay, so at the ridge.
at the ridge.
Okay, okay.
So
Thank
there's
you.
more copper bling.
I know.
Just because it's not special enough. Sorry. It's been a long night, as you know.
Yeah, but thank you for not pushing it off, I appreciate it, I know it's a long night.
No, we've hung in even longer. I mean, we haven't seen the sun come up on this board yet, but.
That I believe.
Hold your tongue.
Not tonight either. Okay, so we have no other discussion, just the addition of the ridge, a copper ridge, and as long as everybody's comfortable moving forward with that, well, Liz votes yes?
Aaron, yes.
David, yes.
Bernie, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Oh, thanks for volunteering.
Okay, I assume you're Fran.
Yeah.
Come on up and talk to us.
Saving the best for last.
Is it an automatic yes since I had to wait?
It's kind of
I'll
like,
say a few, I'll sneak a few things in.
we've been beaten into submission, is that?
We're pretty cranky right now, so.
No.
Taking your chances.
No.
Get the champagne out.
So tell us about your project, Fran.
So there's 3 projects. The first one is the biggest one. And I also wanted to mention that 74 and 76 Fair Street, as I'm sure people who were on the board when all those went through, had some really huge renovations. And this, I think what we're asking for is fairly minor. Not that that influences anybody, but I wanted to throw that in. And so the first one, Project 1, as I called it, is, I guess I'd say initiated because we have a tremendous amount of rot. Because you all have the pictures, but the little roof over the side, this is on the side of the house. Does everybody have all this?
Yeah.
The little roof does not cover the whole porch, and you can kind of see from this picture, there's sort of a U-shaped portion around the gable that's flat. And so that allows a lot of water to sit there and come down through. I don't think, well, I didn't get a good picture. The column on the left is split because of water damage. And this, I call it a cornice, I don't know what.
Bracket?
Holds up the architrave, which I learned a new word. It's like
You're doing very well.
It's like a decorative bracket. That's all peeling and rotting. I mean, I don't know if it's rotting, but it obviously has water damage, and you can see the mold. Do you have black and white pictures? Do you guys really?
But then we'll trust
You
you.
can see, yeah.
It's a shady spot.
It's all rotted out. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is these little boxes with these little finials or whatever they are on top, like at the bottom of the gable. There's little square decorative things with, I call that little knob on the top of finial. And I drove all over the county and all over other counties. I looked at hundreds of barns. This is an old carriage house. Barns don't have that. So I don't think that was a good deal. I don't think those little, maybe this whole mess was not original. So what we would like to get permission to do is to take all that off and have the gable roof built out over the whole porch so the floor doesn't rot and the stairs don't rot. And we've owned the house for 24 years, and why didn't we think of this before?
Do you have an image of, I guess, you've given us an image, so it's gonna be wider, it's gonna be,
do you have the drawing?
yes.
It's gonna come down with approximately a 2-inch overhang. I think that would be enough. If it went more than 2 inches, it would intrude in front of this window.
Right. That
Although
was kind of my question, is I just wanted to make sure you had accounted for the windows.
For the windows, and then there's one on the left that's even closer, and there is enough space there from the angle of this picture, it doesn't look like there is, but there is.
So the columns you're proposing, are you reusing the existing, or
Yeah.
are you? Okay.
I actually don't think it's leaking right now. A few years ago, well, that flat part has to have some water that sits there that must seep down through, but a couple of years ago, we did have that gable roof replaced. My husband actually put a cedar shake roof on that, I don't know, a zillion years ago, not knowing that you're not supposed to do that for, even though they do in England.
Yeah.
So I think that was also contributing to the trouble. But I think since this shingle roof is on, it's not leaking as much. And it does, we've been here since May 15th, we live in Florida most of the time. But I don't think there's been any more water dripping down. I try to check it when it rains to see if it looks the same. So basically, when the contractor took everything off, you know, maybe some of that crown molding could go, some of that decorative stuff. See, once again, I don't think Barnes had that, all that fancy schmancy. Everything is like really simple. The window frames are just straight 1x6s, and everything is pretty simple. So it would be approximately the same pitch. I measured it, it would be about 87 inches, and then from the peak of the gable to the house is 57, if it were to cover the whole porch, which is, that's what we want, because we're sick and tired of replacing rotted stuff, and why didn't we think of this in the last 24 years?
But you're just otherwise gonna maintain the footprint of the porch decking?
The steps,
as it is, yeah.
2 steps.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the depth is gonna stay the same, and you're just gonna try to cover the whole thing?
The depth of the porch will stay the same, but the depth of the roof will enlarge. Right. And then we can not have to do all this repair and spend money every year. I mean, the only thing that works at a house is the owner, right?
That's how I feel.
And we totally value all the architectural integrity, and I think it's so neat that the whole town is on the historic register. So we don't want to, and I think actually we'll be improving the actual architectural integrity by taking those funny little things off. Have any of you ever seen any of those funny little things off? I was even gonna bring Cindy Fox's book on barns, but.
Well, it's actually not a barn, it's a fancy carriage house.
Well, I mean, that's basically.
Yeah,
barn, isn't it?
Yes, but, I mean, people made those accessory structures fancy if they could afford it.
What was that?
They made them fancy if they could afford it.
Yeah.
Do you have original early pictures from those?
No.
No, yeah.
No,
I have one, but it doesn't show the side.
Yeah, the only
I have one in the
picture,
front.
the oldest picture, I think, is just from the
But,
70s.
Yeah.
the roof, and all the different roofs, there's, you know, it's a pretty complicated roof. There's none of those fancy little decorative things anywhere else.
Right.
So maybe, like you said, maybe somebody just wanted that side end, this is the side entrance, to have the little fancy schmancy. So, you know, we just want to protect the wood and let the rain go where, and there's no gutters on the house either, so that adds to the problem with all the.
How old is it?
114.
I looked at that, those rectangular boxes, and it looks like plywood. It doesn't look like original.
There you go, yeah. And I think that flat part that goes around the gable in those little boxes, I wonder if that's plywood. Because maybe this whole thing originally had a gable roof, and who knows? Nobody, I mean, we don't know. But we do want to keep it, you know, we don't want to do anything strange that would offend the actual historic character of it, because we like all that stuff. So let's see, what else did I write that might need explaining?
So I have a quick question, just out of curiosity, and I just can't tell from the drawing. You're saving the posts and moving them forward?
No, we're not moving them.
Oh, okay.
No, all we're moving is the roof.
Okay.
Take off the gable that's there now. If this were the porch, this piece of paper, the current roof is like that. We just want to make it bigger.
Okay.
So it covers the entire porch and protects it from the
So
water.
are you what's gonna support the roof? Are you gonna use brackets, or?
Well, the columns will be there.
Okay, that's what I mean,
Oh, yeah, and then the.
So those
architrave.
are, the columns that are set back, are
They're right at the edge of the porch.
You're not extending it much. You're not going out very far. Sorry to interrupt if
I don't know exactly how much we're extending it. I didn't measure that, but we want it to come out far enough, which I believe is my 57
Right.
inches,
Right,
to cover the steps also.
got it.
Because
Yeah.
we've replaced
No,
that
but you're gonna,
multiple
But there's not much
times.
space on that side, so it's not.
Well, the
gonna be
driveway is
too
maybe
far.
8 feet wide, you know the house. I mean, we've had trucks come in and hit,
the top,
not,
yeah.
this is the back, this is the side near the street. And in fact, there's a tree back by the garage, I wanna have some work done on it, he can't get a bucket truck in there.
Because it's, yeah. So I'm not asking this to challenge you as much as to understand.
You can
The
challenge.
columns that are there now
Yes.
are gonna get moved out to the edge of the porch? No.
Just saying. where they
Okay.
are. No.
So what is going to support the 57-inch overhang? You're gonna get new columns?
No, well, the architrave is right on top of the columns.
The existing columns?
Right.
But you're talking about taking it out 57 inches?
Oh, no.
No.
No, only like a foot or
Oh,
so.
no, this is supposed to be a drawing of the new roof. This is not the existing. So when the new gable is made larger, like I said, to cover the whole porch and the step, it'll be 57, it'll be
Right.
57 inches.
What's gonna support it it could be me, I'm being very dense. What's gonna support it at the front end?
Well, there's the architrave here, right on top of the columns.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know enough about
So it's
construction to
currently
use the
like
right
this,
words
so
to
it's gonna be
explain
like
it,
that.
but the
Okay.
gable,
57 inches.
But I think you're only
It's not
going out
extending 57.
one
It's
step.
The final
I
is
mean, you're
gonna
not,
be
you're
57.
extending it only maybe.
we're probably
Okay.
extending it,
The
I would
current-
guess,
I think
what we
the
don't
step
have
is
the
maybe,
current
what, 8
depth.
inches?
Right, and that's what I'm struggling
Right.
with. I'm very
Well, you
kind of
know-
literal.
But you're,
We're not extending everything that's up there, we're just extending the gable,
The
because,
actual,
right,
So I think the piece of information that we're struggling with is what is the current depth?
right.
It's not 57
the
inches,
current
it's
depth of
less
the gable,
than
of the
57
gable that's
inches.
there now. I
Yeah.
did
How
not-
much
I did
less
not climb
than-
up there to measure that.
Like I said, I think we're only talking extending it out like a foot.
Right,
at
like
the
it
most.
might be
Couple
40.
And I'm just trying to
Sure.
structurally
And
understand.
yeah, that's a
right.
very valid point.
Because the part that I said that's like flat, that goes around like this, it's maybe a foot.
If that.
And then we wanted to go over the step. I mean, I don't think it's gonna go out more than 20 to 24 inches. But the support is already there.
That's just a shelf,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, it's like
So the
a
shelf won't
U-shaped
go away.
silly shelf. I could use these, right?
I
I do my whole little thing here.
I get what she's laying down.
So the shelf is like that. That's where the plywood, it's probably plywood. And then the current gable is like here. It probably comes, it comes like that. So there's a little bit of the flat U-shaped thing around, so we just want to take that off and make it a bigger gable. My paper's not big enough. So we wanted to go whoop, doop, to cover the step and everything. And hopefully when it's taken apart, they won't say, oh, the columns are rotten. Columns. Because that would be very costly. Then the house goes on the market.
Not because the columns need to be replaced. They're not that costly. And we have in the past approved columns made out of composite material.
Oh,
If you
okay.
do need to get new columns, but you would have to come back for a field change, so.
Oh, sure.
Well, and especially for
And the
this.
brackets are remaining, the on
Yes,
top of the
yeah,
columns?
yep, because, they're pretty,
Right there.
they're attractive. Where are they? There they are. And are they original? Who knows, but, and then, the columns have like, I don't know the architectural term, but there's rings of, you can see under the brackets, there's a darker round thing at the top, there's,
capital.
what is it called?
What do they call it, the capital of the building?
Capital, okay. And then these are like a teal color, and then the column is off-white, and then there's more capitals, there's more basements.
Base, just a base.
Yes.
So that's like a little detail, instead of just a column.
So the actual you're extending out over the flat U-shaped trim that goes around there that collects snow. But beyond that, you're probably not going,
And
you're
then-
probably not extending the actual footprint of the roof, if you can use such a thing, by more than like 8 inches or so, 10 inches. You're just trying to
I
cover the
think it might
step.
be a foot and a half, because
Foot and a half,
we'd
okay.
like it to cover the
The stairs.
step.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, there's always the challenge, we've asked different contractors about, the side pieces on the step are wood, and they tend to rot. I think it would be neat to have a whole stone foundation for the
I
stairs.
thought it was just one step.
Well, I guess I'm counting the one, and then you go up to the porch.
Right, the
Yeah.
porch deck, but it's
So
really
there's
only one step.
and then the
that's-
porch, yeah. So a tread is what, 8 inches or 7?
Depends. Like I said, I don't think you're actually extending the footprint of the roof out very far at all.
Not much, no.
So
You definitely won't get any cars going through there, or trucks anyway.
So you intend to keep the same brackets as well
Yes.
as the post then?
As well as the
Okay.
columns. And then the architrave might not, once they remove, on the one picture, you can see all the moldy stuff. It's like a crown molding type of thing, that might have to come off. I mean, it doesn't look like anything that you'd want to save, and then the way I didn't draw a side view, but that might even be flat at the end. I mean, that would be like a construction question, I assume. Or if you would want that crown molding appearance to go back, that could go back.
I think it'll still look pretty, because your columns are relatively simple, just the.
Yeah, just keep it simple, yeah. And cheaper.
Simple, we'll call it simple. Elegant simplicity.
Right, exactly. Shabby chic.
No.
Well, that was a whole furniture thing there for a while. And then, of course, contributing to the problem is, like I said, there's no gutters. Here's some roof pitches that come from the second level. This house has all kinds of different roof lines, but, well, the water coming off the front wouldn't hit, but coming off the sides would. So there's been lots of water landing down there for 114 years. You made me do math really quick there.
You did well.
I mean, it wouldn't really, visually, it wouldn't look much different. You'd be losing the little
You'd
boxes.
just be losing those little
The
boxes.
little boxes are probably 4 inches high, and the little pivotal knobs. It would have much the same appearance. Except for the wetness.
The mold of the rot.
Are there any other questions about the overhang proposed?
No.
Okay, tell us about the windows.
Okay. All right, so, like I said, we live in Florida most of the time, but we would like to start spending more time up here. So, at the back of the house, I'm sure there must be a picture of the back somewhere. The back of the house was the stables on the first floor, about the back third. So what we want to do is make a portion of that into a living room and put 2 windows on the back and make the current living room into a second bedroom. Because when you have company and you only have 1 bedroom, you got blow-up beds all over the place. So I think that was project 3, actually. And then project 2 is on the cemetery side. I drew a little window there. And that is the downstairs living room that used to be 2 closets, so there's no window. So if you're sitting in a living room with no window, it's nice when you're watching TV, because it's nice and dark, but it's kind of depressing. So we would like to add a window there, and that one on the side and the 2 on the back would be the same size as 9 other windows in the house. And we would, of course, line it all, we would make it consistent horizontally. And there's 2 small windows on the very back. I don't think they were original, because that was the hayloft on the second floor. And then there's a little tiny window on the porch, which I drew it, but it's not in my photos. But the point I'm making is the 3 windows that we would add would match most of the windows in the house. They would be wood mullions all the way through. I think the vinyl removable ones are horrible.
Thank you.
They would be wood windows. I mean, if you're vinyl, I mean, I know it has advantages, but, so they would definitely match, 6/6, and then, here's, oh no, that doesn't show. The little window on the side porch that we talked about, I think that's a 4/4. Here it is.
It is.
And then the two on the back are 4/4. But they would be 6/6, they would definitely be wood.
And the two on the back would be ganged next to each other?
Yes.
At two separate units, okay.
Right, but together. And, you know, the way I drew it, I had the windowsill like 38 inches up. I had it the same, not that anybody's gonna go look on the side and say, oh, that windowsill is 38, how come yours is 34 on the back? But why not keep it consistent, you know, all the way around the house?
Yeah.
So it would just be a renovation to improve our living space when we're here. And then we get to go back to Florida and sweat and worry whether it's gonna be okay.
Bernie will keep an eye on it for you.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. Everybody will.
Does anybody have questions about the proposed windows?
And then, of course, anything inside would be through the county, I guess, right, with all those permits? But
Yes,
these
I
things
mean,
are
we
all
just do the
exterior.
outside, yes.
Just one here, yeah. Right, it's just one window on the rear.
No, that's two.
Two.
Oh, sorry, one
Basically next to
window.
each other,
It's not a symmetrical pair of windows on the other side of the door, it's just one.
side by side.
It's two side-by-side windows.
But
Yes.
all are right next to each other to the left of the door.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
We just want to get as much light in there as we can. I guess the one side photo shows the little stable windows. That room in the back, you know, is the stable, so there's 4 on each side of the house, but they're only like this big. So if it's gonna be a big living room, it needs more light. And one window, it's gonna be, I think it's about a 16-foot wall. So one little 32-inch window would be kind of out of proportion, I think. It could work. And then, can you see a picture of the back door? Like the top of the door has, I think, 16 panes. And then we considered getting,
Oh, yeah,
the top and the bottom.
I just hear it just hanging.
We considered having one built that would match that, but that probably would have been a small fortune.
I think there are people who could direct you toward window builders if you're really looking for that.
Okay,
But
we probably don't want to spend that, but that, I mean, that would be another option. I just think it's nice if we do the 2 double hungs on the back, if they match the rest of the house. It seems more consistent with the architectural theme of the town. And how do you get one of those little plaques saying that you're on the National Historic Register?
we don't do those. You could ask the Macmillans, have one on their house. I'm not sure how or where they
I think it
got
might have to
theirs.
come from Albany. I have a feeling.
I don't know about that. I can certainly reach out to the State Historic Preservation Office, but I don't think they do that. I think that's something you just kind of can purchase and order. Yeah, really. We'll see if we can find out for you.
You could go to a sign person and have them make one.
Right, right.
Circa, whatever, right?
But anyway, did anybody have any other questions about windows? Okay, well, Atzigo 2000, I'm sure, could give you resources for people who make windows if you need that.
Okay.
Otherwise, do we feel the need to break this application into 2 votes, or are people comfortable approving or voting for the windows and the overhang in one vote?
I'm comfortable.
One vote? Okay, good. Okay. Dave, would you like to make a motion?
I would feel offended if you didn't.
Let's move that in part provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 72 Fair Street, involving the extension of the roof on the side of the house, as well as the new windows, under criteria 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 3C, and 5.
she gets a
Wow.
photo. He's very generous with this.
Yeah,
Full house.
yeah, it's, you know.
I'm gonna go big in second. Any discussion? Liz votes yes.
David, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Bernie, yes.
Thank you for your patience tonight,
Oh, you're
Fran.
welcome.
Thank you.
It was interesting.
And if you do have changes, like the posts or anything, just come back for a field change, so we know
Okay.
that materials have to change, it's documented in the files, things like that.
Okay.
Okay?
And then I was gonna ask another question. There's another big project that I would love to do. It probably would be bigger than a small fortune. Why do we say a small fortune? It's never small. And that is to do something that Pine did at 76 Fair, is make a little apartment over the garage. But how do you find out, I guess it would be an engineer, how do you find out what footings are there? Because the footings have to be strong enough.
Yeah, I think that is an engineer and structural engineer.
Is that what Pine had to do? I mean, I assume, you know, because there wasn't an apartment over that garage before he did what he did.
That is a question for, because we approve the appearance, that's a question for county
Structure.
codes
Yeah.
about what they were required to do and by who,
Okay.
Right.
unless,
I think you're right. If the building wasn't designed to support that weight, they might only have very narrow
Mhm.
beams going across. So I think that's really it. We're not in the business of
Right.
doing that, but you could also look in there and see if it's, is it 16 on center, is it 2x4s, is it 2x10s? You can get a sense sometimes that, okay, that's a weak, shallow depth
Right.
ceiling just to make it, you know, it's not meant for humans up there, so. you
Of
might
course,
be
we
able
have to
know at
recover
first
from
glance.
this expense first, and that'll be, who knows when, never probably. I just think it would be neat.
You can look up online the weight-bearing floor joists in terms of, there's a standard amount of weight they allot for living in. I forget what the poundage, but it'll say for your span, you need a 2x10
And I
or a
guess
2x12
I guess
or a
I'm picturing
2x14.
of like, when I use the word footings, I'm thinking like in the corners.
Can't help you there.
Okay.
yeah.
Have to dig down.
We know how things look.
I know.
We can't tell you how gravity works.
With your contractor,
Very
comes
superficial.
work on the
Yeah.
roof. Have your contractor look
Totally.
at that and just
Right.
ask, he can probably tell you,
Right.
oh, a 2x10 at 69
Right,
center can
exactly.
support
Yeah,
X.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
Where's
very
the
much.
champagne?
Down the street at
In the
Rudy's.
executive lounge.
So now, since you all voted yes, and I'm so happy that even Erin did. I did. Do I need like any kind of written?
I will send you,
Okay.
you'll get an email with a digital version of your certificate, and then
Okay.
I'll send it to the county, and get it mailed to you, so lots of
Okay.
documents coming your way.
And that's good for 2 years, right?
Yes.
Because this is probably gonna, the roof would be nice if we could find somebody to do it now, but everything might happen next year. Yeah.
And if you do need more time, we do often have people who have come to us. It's not uncommon for people to say, oh, a part of my project is not done yet.
Right.
And we will vote to extend
That's what
the,
Chris said, so I remember that. I recorded that.
Okay.
so
Okay.
that's not out of the
Oh,
question.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Ray.
you.
You guys get to go now, or you have to?
Almost, we have a few
Oh my gosh.
people to talk about and some
Okay.
minutes to
Yep.
approve, almost, thank you.
Good night.
You too. Before we go back to Church Street, was there anything we had to act on with John Sansevier, especially if he didn't come to the meeting, or is that? Is it safe to assume that since he didn't come to present
Oh, this is,
anything?
sorry, for the 11,
Cooper Lane.
Cooper Lane?
that one he just dropped off, just like a day or two before, and that one will have to, it's for an ADU, so that's going to have to go.
So it has other meetings to go
Yeah,
to?
it's got a lot, I just brought it here to get it started, but
Okay.
thought he might come to talk about it, but
Since
he's not in a
he's not.
hurry, and he's like, let's just get this going, so
Okay.
that's probably why.
And it has other hoops it needs to jump through.
Yeah,
So-
parking.
When he's ready for our group, if he could put together a picture of each side of the garage as it is now and what how he would change it.
Elevation and more.
Yeah, it's a little hard for me
Yeah.
to make sense of his.
And he also
drawing.
hasn't described any materials,
Right.
and so he would need to describe the materials.
I think this is gonna have to have reviewed by numerous boards, and he's just starting it out, so we
Okay.
included it to get us going here.
And he's given us a picture of a door, but it doesn't say what the door's made out of.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
and he has come before us before, so we need a little more detail, he probably understands that. The one thing I did suggest we do, in addition to quickly approving the minutes, if we have the right composition of people to do that for any of them, is to look at 15 Church Street, to set a public hearing for the porch in case he does want to do that at the October meeting. Do we have a motion to set a public
So
hearing?
moved.
Great. Second?
Second.
All in favor, yay.
Yay.
Chris, if he doesn't want to have it in October, if he's not ready for it, we can delay.
Sure.
So you can, I just didn't want, it to
Right.
go by.
The opportunity.
And then we had encouraged him not to have one solid wall along the east side. And he has created a little jog, which is a good step. I just thought if anybody had any feedback for him on that. But if you're not sure and we need to talk to him, that's fine. It sounds like he'll be coming back to us.
I know I don't have to vote. I'm very happy to see that 15-inch setback jog there. I think it does. You talk about breaking up the sheer face of the building, and
It's a behemoth.
and it really effectively does that, it seems to me.
Yes. I do still wonder about the roof line, but we'll talk to him about that. Because it still seems higher than the front, but we have to clarify that with him. So, but that wall looks a lot better.
I think, are you looking at this drawing here?
No,
Oh.
I was looking at,
This one shows, you can see the existing roof line. I remember previously you had the addition peeking up above it, so it still
Right.
is below.
this is the
not-
one I was looking at, which seems to have it above it still. So that's, maybe,
Right.
so we just really need some clarification on that.
Right, exactly, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
I see what you're saying.
Anyhow.
Yep.
Okay, we can communicate that to him, that's great. So let's see, in August, we had Dave, Aaron, and Liz at the meeting, so we can vote on these minutes for August. Anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the August HR meeting?
I think I can make that motion. Because I don't need, somebody's gotta introduce me to the cheat sheet.
No, I don't even
And
think
the
you have to
motion
do that, yeah.
Yes,
right.
I move that we approve the minutes from the August meeting.
Dave, would you like to second?
I would.
Okay, super. The minutes from the other meetings we haven't approved yet?
I don't think we can approve them. Because the right people aren't here.
Yeah, because,
I was here, Dave
for
wasn't.
June, Liz, David, and Pat, that's it. And Pat's not
Okay.
here. Can two people,
No, we need 3 out of 5.
so June must wait.
And then July, did we have another set of minutes that we weren't able to
We do.
approve? Who was here?
Not me.
Aaron, Aaron was here in July, wasn't
Okay,
she?
That was my
Aaron,
first
Aaron.
one.
And Bernie, you were here in
Yeah.
July, weren't you?
I believe so.
So we can. We can kill that one.
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay. Who wants to make a motion to approve the minutes from the July?
Can I do
meeting?
that?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the July minutes.
Awesome, thank you. Who would like to second?
I'll second.
Yay! Yay, I vote yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, yeses, so many yeses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, thanks for your work on the Walnut Street property.
I appreciate everybody trying to shoulder some of the explanation where I'm stumbling, especially over.
You never stumble.
Oh, yeah. And right on my face I fall.